It was my third week on night shift. Still new enough that my hands would sometimes hover over the keyboard too long, searching for the right field to type into, but past the point where my trainer sat beside me. I liked the quiet nights when all I had to do was sip burnt coffee and watch the blinking status board. But that night, the quiet felt different. We'd had 2 noise complaints and a single welfare check in the past 3 hours. My partner across the room was scrolling through his phone. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making the silence between calls feel heavier. When the phone lit up with an incoming call, I saw the line indicator, line 3. I didn't know why it mattered that it was that one. But even then, I remember feeling something shift in my stomach. I answered with my usual, 911, what's your emergency? At first, I thought no one was there. Just static, faint and soft. Then, so quiet I almost missed it, a boy's voice. She's in the house. I straightened in my chair. Okay, can you tell me your name? No answer. Just breathing, like he was pressed close to the phone. Where are you right now? I tried again. There was a pause, then a string of numbers. A street address. I typed it into the CAD system, forwarding it to dispatch. Is this your home? Another pause. She's upstairs. I felt my skin prickle. Who's upstairs? He whispered like it hurt to say the words. The woman. Okay, listen, I kept my voice even. Are you alone right now? Is anyone else in the house with you? The boy's breathing picked up. She's moving. The way he said it, flat, almost resigned, made my stomach knot. I waved to my partner, mouthed possible intruder. He straightened, pulling on his headset to listen in. Can you tell me your name? I asked again. Evan. How old are you, Evan? 8. 8 years old, alone in a house with someone upstairs. I kept him talking while units were dispatched. Where are you in the house right now? Downstairs. In the kitchen. Good. Stay there. Don't hang up. Help is on the way. There is a sound in the background. Faint creaks like footsteps on old floorboards. She's at the top of the stairs, Evan whispered. I swallowed. Do you know her? No. Okay. Is there a door you can lock? Another pause. I think she can hear me. His voice had dropped to the kind of whisper where consonants vanish. I lowered mine to match. Evan, I need you to be very quiet. Is there somewhere you can hide? She's coming down. My heart was beating hard now, the way it does when you're trying not to let your voice shake. Evan, listen to me. Go to the pantry or closet. Somewhere small. There was a shuffle on the line. The sound of him moving. Then, she's not walking right. I frowned. What do you mean? She's bent. Like her head's wrong. Every instinct told me to keep him calm, keep him talking, but I was aware of my partner's eyes on me. He typed something into his console. ETA 4 minutes. Okay, you're doing great, Evan. Just stay hidden until the police arrive. I don't think she's looking for me, he said. That stopped me. What do you mean? I think she's looking for you. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Evan, what? Static. The line hissed, like someone had pressed the receiver against fabric. Then his voice again. She's in the kitchen now. I sat forward. You said you were in the kitchen. I moved, he whispered. I'm upstairs now. I stared at the address field. Evan, where's your house again? He repeated it. Same street name, but different number. Just 1 digit off from before. I typed it in, different location, across town from the first. Both addresses existed. My partner frowned, muting his headset. Which one do we send them to? I didn't answer. Evan, are you sure that's your address? He hesitated. I think so. You think so? She's outside the door. I heard it this time. A faint knock, picked up by the phone's mic. 3 slow taps. Evan, do not open the door. Do you understand? He didn't answer. Evan, say something. Static swelled in my ear, a soft roar like wind. Then his voice, faint, almost lost. She knows your name. I felt my chest tighten. What name did she say? Nothing. Just breathing. Evan. The line went dead. I stared at the darkened indicator on my console, listening to the room's silence. My partner broke it first. We send units to both addresses. I nodded. Yeah, both. While they coordinated, I sat there replaying the sound of his voice. How it had shifted, like the words weren't all his. 15 minutes later, both units reported back. First address, dark house, no answer at the door, no signs of forced entry. Second address, a family of 4, all safe. No one named Evan lived there. I filed a report, but it didn't feel like closing a case. More like sealing a jar without knowing what's inside. Around 3 a.m., the phones were dead again. I kept glancing at line 3's light, like it might glow on its own. When it finally did, I froze. Same line. I picked it up. 911, what's your emergency? Static. Then a whisper. She's in the house. My throat tightened. Evan. The voice on the other end wasn't a boy's this time. It was a woman, and she whispered my name that I didn't sleep much after that first call. When I finally did, it was shallow, restless sleep, the kind where your mind keeps replaying pieces of the day you wish you could forget. I kept hearing that whisper in my dreams. First the boys', then the woman's. Sometimes I woke up not knowing which one had actually been real. But night shifts don't stop for bad dreams. The next evening I was back in the same chair, coffee already going cold in front of me. I told myself it had just been a prank. A strange one, sure, but people get their kicks in weird ways. My trainer used to say, half the job is sorting out the liars. I try to believe that. The first 2 hours were normal. A drunk and disorderly call. A minor car accident. Nothing that made my chest tighten. I started thinking maybe I was in the clear for the night. Then line 3 lit up again. It's funny how fast your body remembers. My throat went dry. My hand paused halfway to the phone. My partner glanced over, eyebrows raised. I answered. 911. What's your emergency? Static. Not loud. Just there, faint under everything, like the ocean in a seashell. Then a voice. She's in the house. My heart sank. Evan. The pause felt too long. Then, yeah. I exhaled slowly. Are you safe right now? She's upstairs. It was exactly the same as before. Same flat tone, same words. A chill worked its way down my spine. Where are you right now, Evan? In the kitchen. My hand hovered over the keyboard, but then something else came through the line. It was him. Again. Only not him. The same words in the same voice, but about half a second later. Like an echo that wasn't coming from my headset. She's upstairs, the second voice repeated. I froze. Evan, is someone there with you? He didn't answer. Just breathing. Then the first voice again, a little faster. She's coming down the stairs. And right after, half a beat behind, the second voice, she's coming down the stairs. Same pitch. Same cadence. The only difference was the timing. I felt my stomach twist. Evan, listen to me. Is there anyone in the house besides you and her? Just me. Then the second voice. Just me. The hair on my arm stood up. My partner mouthed, what's going on? I didn't know how to explain it without sounding insane. Evan, I said carefully, what's making that other voice? What other voice? I swallowed. The one I'm hearing. It sounds like you. Silence. Then, that's not me. And right on its heels, that's not me. I had to force myself to breathe evenly. Evan, I need you to tell me where you are. Right now. Downstairs. The echo, downstairs. He gave me an address this time, different from both of the ones before. I typed it in and sent it to dispatch, but my hands felt clumsy, my fingers cold. What's the woman doing now? I asked. She's looking at me. She's looking at me. The words layered over each other now, closer together, until I could barely tell them apart. Evan, can you hide? She's right in front of me. She's right in front of me. Something about the way the second one said it, just a fraction too slow, made me feel like it wasn't describing the same thing. Like it was saying the same words, but about something else entirely. I heard a creak through the line. Then the boy's voice whispered, she's smiling. She's smiling. I leaned forward, pressing the headset tighter against my ear. Evan, I want you to close your eyes and not move. Help is coming, okay. She's not smiling anymore. She's not smiling anymore. I don't know why, but that rattled me worse than anything else. In the background, I thought I heard a third sound. Soft, almost like a chuckle, but cut short. Then the echo started to change. The first Evan spoke normally, but the second one began stretching the words. She's not smiling anymore. It was the same voice, but wrong. Like it had forgotten how long a word was supposed to be. I shot a look at my partner. He was already on the phone to the responding unit, telling them to approach with caution. Evan, can you see the door? Can you get outside? No. No. What's blocking you? She is. The second one almost sounded like it was enjoying the answer. I wanted to hang up. Every instinct screamed that whatever this was, I didn't want it coming any closer, metaphorically or literally. But protocol said you stay on the line until help arrives. The first voice whispered, "She's kneeling." The second followed, "She's kneeling." "Evan, where exactly are you right now? Describe the room." There was a pause. Then both voices at once, perfectly overlapping now. "The kitchen." And then, right after, a third voice, still his but deeper, slower, "Behind you." I spun in my chair before I could stop myself. Just the empty dispatch room behind me, my partner staring like I'd lost it. The first unit radioed in a minute later. They were outside the address. No movement inside. No lights. Door locked. I told Evan to hold on. "They're almost there. Stay quiet." "She's gone," he whispered. "She's gone," the echo said. And then, nothing. No breathing. No static. Just the open hum of a dead line. The officers cleared the house. No one inside. No signs anyone had been there in weeks. I sat there with the receiver still in my hand after the call ended, listening to the silence. My partner asked if I was okay. I lied and said yeah, but I kept thinking about how, toward the end, I couldn't tell which voice had said what, or if either of them was him at all. By my third week, I thought I'd gotten used to the weird calls. You do this job long enough. You hear everything. People confessing to crimes they haven't committed, drunks swearing there are ghosts in their basements, prank calls from kids who think 911 is just a number to mess with. But the calls from Evan weren't like that. They didn't feel like pranks. They felt like the space between my voice and his was too thin. I kept telling myself there was a rational explanation, some glitch, a copycat caller, maybe even someone recording the calls and playing them back. I wanted to believe it. The night it happened again, I didn't even hesitate when line 3 lit up. My fingers moved before I could think. 911. "What's your emergency?" It was him. Same whisper. Same first words. "She's in the house." The moment I heard it, my chest tightened. "Evan, are you somewhere safe?" "She's upstairs." I didn't even type it in this time. I just said, "Where are you right now?" "Give me the address." He told me. Different again. I entered it into the system, hit send to the nearest unit. This time, I was ready for the echo. I thought I'd hear the delayed repeat in my ear, but I didn't. Just his voice, soft and quick, like he was trying not to be heard by whoever else was there. "What's she doing now?" I asked. "She's looking at the window." "Is she inside or outside?" "She's both." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She's in the glass." That made me glance at the dark window across the dispatch room. I could see my own reflection staring back at me, pale under the fluorescent light. "Evan, where exactly are you in the house?" "I'm in the living room. I can see the road." "Good. How about police on the way? Do you see them yet?" He was quiet for a few seconds, then said yes. That caught me off guard. "You see the officers?" "Flashing lights. They're outside." I glanced at my partner. He shook his head. Our CED still showed the unit a few minutes out. "Evan, can you describe the lights?" "They're red. They're moving." I muted my mic and told my partner to radio the responding unit, see if maybe another patrol car had gotten there first. A moment later, the reply came through. Negative. No lights. No vehicles in the area. I unmuted. "Evan, are the lights close to the house?" "They're in the field." "The field?" "Behind the road." Something about the way he said it made me pull up the satellite view of the address. My stomach dropped. There was no house there. No street. Just an empty patch of land, flat and brown, with a dirt road cutting through the middle. The nearest home was half a mile away. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Evan, what's your house look like from the outside?" "It's white," he said. 2 floors. Porch in the front. I stared at the aerial view. "Evan, there's no house where you are." "Yes, there is." I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'm looking at a map. There's nothing there but grass and dirt. "It's here," he insisted, voice trembling now. "I can see the porch. I can see the lights." He was whispering faster, breathing heavier. "They're closer now," he said. "Evan, listen to me. They're right outside the window." "Where are the lights, Evan?" "They're not cars." "What are they?" "They're eyes." For a second, all I heard was static. Then he whispered, "They're looking in at me." I gripped the receiver tighter. "Get away from the window." He didn't answer. I thought maybe the line had dropped, but then I heard the faintest sound, something like tapping. slow, deliberate. I couldn't tell if it was on glass or wood. "Evan," I said, "where are you now?" "In the hallway." "Are you alone?" "No." My pulse jumped. "Who's there?" There was a long pause. Then, softly, "You are." I felt my mouth go dry. "What?" "I see you. You're by the door." I forced my voice to stay even. "Evan, what do I look like?" "You're smiling." I closed my eyes for a second, trying to steady my breathing. "Evan, I'm not there. You're imagining. You're waving at me." I didn't know what to say. My partner was watching me now, concern written all over his face. "Evan, the officers are almost there," I told him. "Stay on the line. Do not move." But when the unit arrived and stepped into that empty field, their flashlights cutting through the dark, there was nothing. No house, no porch, no lights, just weeds and dry soil. I heard the radio crackle with the update. My eyes stayed on the dead line in front of me. And then, in the empty silence of the dispatch room, my headset clicked. Just once. Not from an incoming call. Not from any line. A whisper came through. "They can't see it." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Another whisper, softer. "They're still outside." I pulled the headset off and set it on the desk. My hands were shaking. My partner asked if I was okay. I told him I didn't know. Later, when I drove home, I kept glancing at the rearview mirror. Not for cars, for lights. And once, just once, I thought I saw two small, red dots following me down the road that IT was quiet when the line went dead. Or at least, I thought it had gone dead. I remember staring at the blinking cursor on the call log, my headset pressing warm against my ear, and thinking that was it, that the boy had finally hung up, or maybe his phone had died. There was no click, no tone, just an absence. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I kept my hand on the mouse, frozen because the silence didn't sound like silence. It was thick, heavy, like a room with the air pulled out. I didn't speak at first. I just listened, my eyes fixed on the address box in front of me. Empty field. No houses. No lights. That's what the patrol had said. They were still there, sweeping the grass in the beam of their spotlights. Nothing. But the boy had been certain. And I believed him. I don't know why. I swallowed, leaning closer to the mic. "Hello." Nothing. I glanced at the clock. 2:41 a.m. Every second felt too long. I should have ended the call. Logged it as disconnected. That's the procedure. But instead, I waited. I don't even think it was a choice. Something about that silence felt expectant, like the moment before someone breathes in to speak. Then I heard it. Not a voice. Not yet. Just breathing. It was faint, at first, so faint I thought it was my own. But I knew my own breathing. I knew its rhythm. This was different, shallower, slower. Like someone holding themselves perfectly still, drawing air through barely parted lips. My skin prickled. "Is this?" My voice cracked, and I cleared my throat. "Is this the boy? Can you hear me?" The breathing didn't change. I sat there, headset digging into my temple, listening to someone I couldn't see, in a place I couldn't find, take quiet, deliberate breaths in my ear. I could hear the patrol on the radio, still searching the field. One of them joked about coyotes. Another mentioned teenagers messing around. I wanted to tell them it wasn't that simple. But how do you explain something you don't understand yourself? And then the whisper started. My name. Not my title. Not ma'am. Not dispatcher. My name. It came so softly that I didn't register at first. Just the shape of it, slipping between breaths. Anna. I felt my stomach drop. Nobody on that call should have known my name. We don't give it out. That's policy. All the boy had known was my voice. Who is this? My voice was sharper than I intended. Anna. It wasn't a child's voice. It was a woman's. Low. Hoarse. Like she'd been speaking for hours and finally found the word she'd been waiting for. Every instinct told me to hang up. But I didn't. Something in me, the same thing that had kept me listening through the silence, needed to know. How do you know my name? A pause. Then closer this time, right against the mic. I see you. My heart thudded in my ears. I looked up. The dispatch room was empty except for me. The night shift had thinned down to 2 people, me at the front desk and Riley in the break room heating up stale coffee. The big windows across from my desk reflected my own face back at me, pale and tight-jawed under the fluorescent lights. Where are you? I asked. More breathing. Field. I stiffened. What field? Silence. Then so soft I barely caught it. Behind you. I turned to my chair, slow, knowing I wouldn't see anything. The hallway behind me was empty. The motion sensor lights dimmed. Still I stood. Took a step back. My pulse was in my throat. The voice didn't follow with words this time. Just breathing. I think I whispered stop without meaning to. And then she laughed. It was a dry, broken sound like someone exhaling through cracked lips. Riley's footsteps came from the break room, his coffee sloshing in its mug. I must have looked shaken because he frowned as he passed, mouthing, "You okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't. I couldn't tell him, not without sounding insane. When he was gone, I sat again. The headset felt heavier now, the air in the room too still. The woman whispered my name again, but this time it didn't sound like my name. It was my name, same syllables, same cadence, but bent somehow like she was pronouncing it the way someone might if they'd only read it and never heard it spoken. And I realized she wasn't calling to me. She was trying me on, like she was making sure it fit. I didn't know what to do. Every bit of training I'd had told me to terminate the call, flag it for review, hand it to the tech team to trace. But there was this pull, like if I hung up, something important would slip away. So I asked the only question that mattered. Where's the boy? There was a long stretch of quiet. And then, he's watching the lights. What lights? The breathing quickened. They're not for him. My grip tightened on the desk. They're not for him? Then who are they for? The woman exhaled, slow and deliberate. For us. And just like that, the line clicked dead. No static. No fading. Just nothing. I sat there, headset in my lap, listening to the hum of the fluorescent lights above me. My heart wouldn't slow down. I wanted to log the call, but what would I even write? Unidentified woman knows my name. Says lights are for us. Instead, I pulled up the patrol feed again. The field was empty. No movement, no sound except the wind pushing against the microphones. But there was something faint in the distance. A flicker. It was small at first, almost like a camera glitch. Then it pulsed again, and again. Lights. I thought about calling the officers, telling them to look north. But before I could, the flicker stopped, and all I had was black, empty grass on the monitor. I didn't sleep that morning. I didn't even try. I drove home with my eyes on the rearview mirror, certain that if I looked away for too long, I'd see the faint strobe of something far behind me. In the days after, I kept thinking about the boy, about how calm he'd sounded describing the lights. Like he didn't know they weren't supposed to be there. Like they'd been there for him before. But the woman's voice, that stuck with me in a way the boys never had. Not just because she'd known my name, but because of the way she'd said it like it wasn't mine anymore. Like I'd already given it to her. I never got another call from that number. The tech team couldn't trace it. Probably a spoof, they said. Some prank. Some attention seeker. I let them believe that. But every now and then, especially on nights when the wind rattles the dispatch windows, I swear I hear her breathing in the static between calls. Waiting. And sometimes I hear her say my name, He started like any other night. Fluorescent lights buzzing above me. The faint smell of burnt coffee drifting from the break room. My headset pressing into my ear just enough to remind me I'd been here too long. Midnights at the dispatch center have their own rhythm. You get a lot of drunks. A lot of teenagers daring each other to call 911. Some medical calls that are real, and some that are just people looking for someone to talk to. I've been on shift for maybe 3 hours when the phone rang again. Nothing unusual. I'd already answered 15 that night. But the second I pressed the line and heard what came through, I froze. Heavy breathing. Not fast. Not panicked. Just slow, deep, like someone was trying not to make noise but couldn't help it. 911, what's your emergency? I asked. Nothing. Just the breathing. I tried again. This is 911. Are you in danger? The breathing didn't stop. It got a little louder, like the person had adjusted the phone closer to their mouth. Then I heard it. A scratching sound. It was faint at first, almost easy to ignore, but then it came again, sharper this time, like fingernails dragging over wood. I sat up straighter. Sir or ma'am, I need you to say something so I can send help. The scratching stopped. There was a pause, 3, maybe 4 seconds, and then a whisper so faint I almost thought I imagined it. "She's above me." I didn't breathe for a second. "Who's above you?" No answer. Just that steady breathing, the quiet sound of air moving in and out, slow and careful. I leaned closer to the mic. "Can you tell me your address?" Nothing. Then, almost too quiet to pick up, the scratching started again. This time it sounded closer, more deliberate, like something or someone was dragging nails along the ceiling above him. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Okay, sir. Are you inside a house?" Finally, the whisper came again. "She's crawling. She's been crawling for hours." The hair on my arm stood up. I don't know why that line hit me so hard, but it did. Maybe it was the way he said it. No panic, no rush, just quiet dread, like he'd been listening to it for so long that his fear had burned down to cold ash. I typed into the CAD system, "Mail caller, unknown location, possible home intruder above him." I tagged it for priority dispatch and kept him talking. "All right, I'm sending police, but I need to know where you are. Can you look around and tell me your address?" He didn't answer. The scratching stopped. Then, for the first time, I heard another sound. It was faint, so faint I had to adjust my headset, but it was there. Something like shifting weight, wood creaking, the kind of sound an old floor makes when someone is crawling over it. "Sir, I need you to listen to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "If someone is inside your home, we can help you. Just tell me your location." "She's right above me," he whispered again, almost like he hadn't heard me. I typed furiously in the system, hoping the phone's GPS could pin him. But when a location popped up, my stomach sank. Signal uncertain. Location, county road intersection, no residence. It didn't make sense. If he was inside a house, why was his phone showing up in the middle of nowhere? I tried again. "Are you in the attic?" "A basement." A long pause. Then crawl space. The word made my chest tighten. I pictured it instantly. A dark, low space under a house, dust and cobwebs hanging from the beams, maybe an old plastic storage box or two. No room to stand. Just enough room to lie there and listen. I swallowed. "Okay, you're in a crawl space. Can you tell me why?" The breathing got heavier, closer to the mic. Then he whispered, "She's looking for me." Before I could respond, there was a noise so sharp in my headset that I flinched. A loud, quick thump directly above the mic. It sounded like someone, or something, had dropped onto the floor above him. He gasped, but it wasn't loud. It was almost contained, like he was trying not to let her hear him. I kept my voice low without even thinking about it. "Don't talk if it's not safe. Just stay on the line." I waved over to my supervisor and pointed at the screen. She came over, saw the location data, frowned, and started trying to reroute the GPS ping. Meanwhile, I listened. The creaking above him grew louder, moving slowly across the space. Every few seconds, there was that scratch again like long nails on wood. But now it was mixed with a sound that made my skin crawl, a slow drag, like fabric brushing the floor. "She's getting closer," he whispered. The line hissed softly in my ear. No other noise. Just him, the faint movements above, and that sick feeling in my stomach. The dispatcher in me knew I should be focusing on getting details. The human in me just wanted to tell him to run. But from a crawl space? There's nowhere to run. "Is there a way out?" I asked. "She's between me and the hatch," he whispered. I glanced at my supervisor. She shook her head, still no updated location. Police had nothing to go on. "Okay," I said softly. "Is there anything down there you can use to protect yourself?" Silence. Then a faint, metallic sound, like a piece of pipe being shifted on the dirt. "She can hear the phone," he whispered, his voice trembling now. "She's listening." I froze, not because of what he said, but because the second he said it, the breathing on the line changed. It wasn't just his breathing anymore. There was another sound, fainter, shallower, like someone else was breathing into the phone from further away. And then it stopped. Everything on the line went completely silent. I thought maybe the call had dropped, but no, the timer kept ticking. He was still there. Or someone was. I whispered, "Sir, are you there?" Nothing. Then, after a long, heavy pause, there was the faintest sound, almost like skin brushing over the mic, followed by a whisper that was not his voice. A woman's voice. Low, drawn out. "Found you." The line went dead. I thought maybe the first call was a prank. I mean, heavy breathing, scratching noises, a whisper about someone being above him. I've had my fair share of weird midnight jokers. But when the line went dead that night, I didn't forget it. The sound had stuck to me. Not the words, but the way the breathing moved. It didn't just stay in one spot. It drifted closer, then away, like whoever was kept turning their head. And that scratching, that wasn't random. It had a rhythm, like fingernails dragging in slow patterns. It was the kind of noise you don't hear often, and you hope you never hear again. 2 nights later, it came back. It was just past 1 a.m., the dispatch room lit in that cold blue glow from the computer screens. The night shift is slow. Calls trickle in like drops from a leaky faucet. You get used to the silence between them. The phone lit up. Same number. When I picked up, I didn't even get a hello out. All I heard was the breathing. Heavy, uneven like the guy had been running but couldn't catch his breath. A tiny scrape in the background, like something rough brushing across drywall. She's right above me. His voice was low and shaking, like he was scared to even say it. "Sir, what's your location?" I asked, already typing. He rattled off an address. I pulled it up in the system. Small single-story house in the North End. Built in the 60s. 2 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. No second floor. No attic. Just a low crawl space under the roof for insulation. "Sir, are you inside right now?" "Yes," he whispered. I'm lying on the floor. She's crawling over me. I could hear faint thumps in the background, spaced apart like the sound of someone shifting their weight. And underneath that, a faint dragging. My stomach tightened. "Can you see her?" "No," he said quickly, like the idea was too much for him. "If I look, she'll know." He was dead serious. No laughter. No hint of a joke. I kept him talking while I sent officers his way. 2 units, lights off, approach quiet. I needed him calm. "What's she doing now?" The phone crackled. "She's stopping. She's listening. She knows I'm talking to you." That made me glance up at the ceiling above me, as if somehow it mattered. The way he said it, like she could hear through the phone. I checked the floor plan again. That house had nothing above the ceiling except a tight space filled with insulation. No one could move around up there without breaking through. Still, I heard it, clear as day. Something was shifting weight above him. "She's crawling again," he breathed. My skin prickled. "Sir, can you leave the house?" "No." "Why not?" He went silent for a moment, like he was debating whether to answer. Then, in the smallest voice I've ever heard, "She'll follow me." I wanted to tell him that wasn't possible, that whatever he was hearing wasn't real, but the noises in the background kept getting sharper. Louder. Something scraped directly above the receiver, like fingers digging. The officers reported they were pulling up. I told him to stay on the line. "Sir, help is outside." "Just." She stopped. His breathing froze, like he was holding in. I heard it too. Total silence. Then, slow as a nightmare, there was a knock. Not on his door. Not on the wall. On the ceiling. 3 solid taps right above him. "She's right here," he whispered. My throat went dry. "The officers are coming in now, okay? Stay where you are." I patched through to the units, told them he was inside, on the floor, claiming someone was in the ceiling. But 30 seconds later, their voices came back over the radio, clipped and confused. "Dispatch. There's no one in here except the caller. House is clear." I could still hear the man breathing in my ear. "Sir," I said, "the officers don't see anything above you." He didn't answer. "Sir." The line hissed with static. Then I realized the sound wasn't static. It was breathing, but not his. Higher pitched. Faster. It was coming from above him. I sat there, frozen, headset pressed to my ear, listening to both sets of breathing. His below, hers above. And then the phone clicked. Deadline. I waited for the officers to confirm he was okay. They came back sounding uneasy. He was shaken, pale, and refusing to leave the spot where he'd been lying. They said they'd checked every inch of the crawl space. Nothing but insulation. No footprints. No damage. No sign of entry. He wouldn't look at them when they spoke. Just kept staring up at the ceiling, eyes darting back and forth like he was following something only he could see. After they left, I logged the call. Standard procedure. But there was nothing standard about it, because when I played back the recording to attach to the file, the knocks were gone. The dragging was gone. Even her breathing gone. All that was left was his voice, trembling, saying over and over, "She's right above me." I still remember the way his voice sounded. Not the words, not exactly, but the weight in them. Like he was pressing them through a layer of panic, so thick it barely let them out. He kept saying, "She's right above me." The call had been going for nearly 9 minutes by then. The officers were already inside his house. They'd checked the attic, the hallways, every damn closet, but they couldn't find anything. No crawl space. No attic door that matched the location he kept describing. But he wouldn't budge from it. "I'm telling you, she's right here. She's crawling." His voice cut out for a moment, replaced by this scraping, muffled sound, like wood being dragged across wood. Then he gasped sharply. "I can see her hair." I remember staring at the CAD screen in front of me. The little digital map of his address was blinking red, showing the officer units inside. And right next to it, in big block letters, the floor plan schematic. It was a one-story house. The ceiling over his bedroom was just rafters, insulation, then the roof. There was nowhere for anyone to be. But the sounds coming through the line, they didn't care about what the floor plan said. Brown, stringy, it's hanging down, moving, I swear. "Sir," I try to keep my voice steady, even though my gut was curling tight. "Officers are right there in your home. They've confirmed there's no space above you for someone to crawl in." He let out this slow, shaking breath. "Then why can I see her?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how to. One of the officers' radios crackled over the open channel on my desk. "Dispatch, be advised, there's nothing here. Bedroom ceiling is solid. No attic hatch in this room." I pressed my headset tighter. "Copy." But the caller says he can still see her. There was a pause, then, "We're not seeing anything." And that was when I realized something. The officer's voice was calm. Controlled. Too calm. The kind of calm that felt careful. "It's moving," the caller whispered suddenly. His voice had dropped to almost nothing. "It's lowering, the hair's lowering down. It's—" A loud bang cut through the line, making me flinch in my chair. It sounded like something had slammed against the ceiling, hard. The caller yelped, and for a second, all I could hear was his breathing, quick and shallow. "Sir, are you okay?" She's trying to come through." My eyes flicked to the officer units on the CAD map. They were still showing inside the house. One in the hallway, one in the living room. Neither was in the bedroom. I keyed the radio. "Unit 12, confirm. Are you in the bedroom with the caller?" Silence. "Unit 12, do you copy?" Still nothing. That's when I noticed the movement on the map. Both units' icons were drifting slowly toward the kitchen. Away from him. "Sir, can you hear me? Stay with me." He let out this trembling laugh. "I think she's smiling." I gripped the desk, so hard my fingers hurt. "Sir, don't look up, okay? I need you to—" It's too late. There was a soft thump. Not loud, not violent, just final, like something had stepped down onto the floor behind him. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not the heavy, quick kind. These were slow, almost careful. The sound of weight shifting on old wood. He didn't scream. He didn't shout for help. He just whispered, "She's in here with me." I spoke into the radio again, my voice sharper now. "Unit 12, Unit 14, respond immediately to the bedroom." Now, the officers' icons on the CAD suddenly moved fast, heading toward the back of the house. But before they could get there, the caller's voice dropped into this strange, low tone. "Wait." I froze. "She's not standing. She's bending down, crawling." I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing until the radio burst to life. "Dispatch, Unit 12. We're in the bedroom. There's no one here. Caller is—" They stopped. Dead air. "Unit 12, say again." The officer came back on, quieter now. Dispatch, there's no caller in this room." That's when my stomach dropped, because I could still hear him. In my headset, he was still breathing, still whispering about the hair brushing his shoulder. But according to the officers, the room was empty. "Sir," I said slowly, "where exactly are you right now?" He let out this soft, confused laugh. "I'm in my bedroom. You told me not to move." I stared at the map. The officers were standing exactly where that should be. But the coordinates from his phone signal, they were wrong. Just slightly. They were placing him beneath the house. Like there was another room. An unlisted room. "Unit 12, check for any access under the house," I said quickly. Basement, cellar, anything. Negative, the officer replied. This house doesn't have a... But he stopped again. Over the open line, I heard one of them say, quietly off mic, "Wait, what the hell is that?" The caller's voice cut in, urgent now. She's right in front of me. I can see her teeth. I gripped the mic. "Sir, back away. Keep your distance. Officers are coming." "No." His voice cracked. "No, she's..." The rest was lost in this horrible, warbling static. Not the normal kind, not the clean hiss you get when the line drops. This sounded wet, distorted, like it was coming from inside the room with him. When it cleared, the officers were both shouting over the radio. Something about finding a hatch in the floor. Something about hearing voices below them. Then a loud clatter, with splintering. And suddenly, the caller's voice was behind me. Not in a headset, not over the line. Behind me. "You shouldn't have sent them here." I spun in my chair, so fast it nearly toppled. But the dispatch room was empty. Just the faint hum of the servers in the corner. My hands were shaking when I put the headset back on. The line was dead. The CAD showed both units still inside the house. But their status had switched to unavailable. We never heard from them again. The official report said the house was empty when backup arrived. No caller. No officers. No crawl space. But every so often, when I'm working a late shift and the building's quiet, I hear slow, careful footsteps above me. And once, only once, I saw a single strand of brown hair drift down from the ceiling that I didn't realize the sound had stopped until I caught myself leaning forward, straining to hear a voice that wasn't there anymore. 1 second, his breathing was in my ear, shaky, frantic, almost desperate. And then nothing. Not a click. Not a beep. Just nothing. But the call hadn't disconnected. The timer on my console was still ticking, red numbers climbing steadily higher. The line was still open. I whispered his name. Well, the name I'd been using for him. He never told me who he was. He was just the caller. My voice barely left my lips, but I could hear in my headset, hollow and too close. No answer. I checked the channel. Still active. Still transmitting. And then I heard it. It was faint at first, just a tiny, irregular tap, like the sound of fingernails on a desk. 1, 2, 3 in quick succession. Then a pause. Then one again. It wasn't static. It wasn't a glitch. It was deliberate. And it wasn't coming from his end. It was too clean, too close. It was inside the building. I took my headset off slowly, as if that would somehow stop the noise from being real. But the sound didn't vanish. It bled out into the room through the tiny, tinny speaker in front of me. My skin prickled. Dispatch was never truly silent, even in the dead hours. There was always someone breathing, typing, shifting in their chair. But now, the floor felt dead. Everyone else was focused on other calls, heads down, voices low. Nobody looked up. Nobody seemed to notice. Tap, tap, pause, tap. I put my headset back on. My mouth was dry. "Hello," I said, but it came out more like a breath than a word. The tapping stopped. For a moment, all I could hear was the open, humming dead air of the channel. And then, faintly, so faintly, I heard it. A breath. Not mine. Not anyone in the room. Slow. Long drawn in, like someone was trying to smell the air. I felt my heart pushing against my ribs. My chair felt suddenly too small, the desk too close. The breath didn't end in a word. It just trailed off into silence, like whoever it was had stepped back. I turned to my chair. Behind me, across the room, the hallway door stood slightly open. Just a sliver. Beyond it was the dark. We kept that door shut at night. It led to the storage wing. Nobody had any reason to go there during shift. Too many blind corners, too much wasted space. It always smelled faintly of dust and mildew, like old books that had gotten wet and dried wrong. I told myself it was fine, that the sound was just bouncing from another channel, that maybe it was the wind in the ducts. But I kept looking at that sliver of hallway like it was looking back. The tapping started again, but this time it didn't come from my headset. It came from somewhere down that hall. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut through the muffled murmurs of the other dispatchers, like something hitting metal, a pen against a filing cabinet, a ring tapping on a locker. Nobody else reacted. I pulled off my headset, stood, and tried to catch someone's eye. No one looked up. I stepped toward the hallway. The closer I got, the colder the air felt. It was always a little cooler in the storage wing, but this was different, like stepping toward the open door of a freezer. The tapping stopped again. I stood in the doorway, listening. The hall was long, with a bend to the left at the far end. The light overhead flickered once. And then, faintly, so faint I thought I imagined it, I heard my name. It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. It was almost conversational, like someone had been standing right behind me and decided to lean in. I turned around so fast I nearly tripped. The dispatch floor was normal. Too normal. I faced the hallway again. There was a sound now, softer than the tapping. A slow dragging, like hair sliding along the wall. I don't know why, but I stepped forward. My feet made almost no sound on the old linoleum. The dragging sound stayed ahead of me, just around the bend. I told myself to stop, that there was no reason for me to go down here alone, that if there was someone in the building, I should call security. But the line was still open. The call was still active. And some stupid part of me thought maybe, just maybe, it was still him. I rounded the corner. Nothing. Just a row of storage lockers on the left, old filing cabinets on the right. The air smelled wrong, like copper and dust. At the very end of the hall was the crawl space access door. Except there wasn't. There was just wall. My stomach turned. I had seen that door before. I had walked past it 100 times. Small, metal, with a rusted handle you had to pull hard to open. Now it was gone. I turned in a slow circle, like maybe I'd taken a wrong turn in a hallway I'd known for years. The sound of hair dragging came again behind me. I spun, and there was nothing. Just the long hallway leading back toward dispatch. I should have run then. I should have walked away and never looked back. But I didn't, because from somewhere very close enough I could feel in my teeth, I heard the faintest, slowest tapping. Not on metal, not on wood, on glass. I followed it, even though my legs felt like they didn't belong to me anymore. The sound led me to the third locker on the left. There was a small glass panel in its door, clouded with dust from the inside. Something moved behind it, just a shift of shadow. And then, right at the glass, a strand of hair slid down, long dark, sticking slightly like it was wet. I stumbled back. My hand hit the wall. From inside the locker, the tapping started again. 3 fast taps. Pause. 1 slow tap. I yanked my radio off my belt and pressed the button. My voice came out too fast, too tight. Control, I need someone in the storage hall right now. Possible breach. Possible intruder inside the building. Static. I tried again. Nothing. The tapping grew louder. And then, clear as if she was standing right next to me, a woman's voice came through my headset. Not the radio. My headset. The one still linked to the dead call. You shouldn't be here. I ripped the headset off. The tapping stopped, but the hair stayed, pressed against the glass, swaying gently. I don't remember running back to the floor. I just remember nearly tripping over my chair as I grabbed the console and hit the disconnect button. The call ended, but the channel didn't close. The timer was gone, but the faint hum of an open line still sat in my ear. And then, from somewhere not in my headset, not on the line, somewhere in the room, I heard the tapping again. Behind me. Inside dispatch, that IT started with a pop in my headset. Not loud, just sharp enough to make me pull it back from my ear for a second. Then silence. Not the normal kind, where you can still hear the faint static of the line. This was heavy, like the sound had been pulled out of the air itself. And then, a man's voice tore through it. He was screaming, not yelling words at first, just raw sound, like an animal caught in a trap. I froze for a second before snapping back into protocol. 911. What's your emergency? His voice was breathless. They're outside. That was all. Sir, who's outside? I asked. No answer. Just the sound of him sucking in air, shaky and fast, like he'd run across his entire property before grabbing the phone. And then he said something that didn't make sense. They're moving wrong. I frowned. Sir, are you safe right now? Are you inside your house? Yes, but his words cut off into a sharp hiss, like he'd covered the phone with his hand. I heard a creak in the background. Floorboards? A porch step? His voice dropped low. I can see them. I clicked my pen without realizing it, jotting notes as I scanned the screen for his location. The system didn't ping a street name, just a section of County Line Road, way out past the power grid. No streetlights. No neighbors within half a mile. He must have known I couldn't see much, because he started talking faster. There's a blackout. Everything's dead. No lights for miles. And they're just standing there. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Sir, I need you to describe them for me. I can't, he whispered. Not really. They're not shaped right. The way he said it sent a chill down my back. Not shaped right. Not human right. Not animal right. I tried again. How many? 4. No, 5. His breathing went shallow. They keep sliding. I don't know how to say it. It's like they're closer every time I look away. Something thudded faintly on the line. I straightened. Was that one of them? No, he said quickly. That was upstairs. Sir, is there anyone else in the house with you? No one. Just me. His voice cracked. Oh God, one's at the window. The panic in his tone made my chest tighten. I started typing a rush dispatch for county sheriff. Okay, listen to me. Stay away from the windows. Lock yourself in a room if you can. Officers are on the way. He made a small, choking noise. You don't understand. If I move, they move faster. I gripped the mic tighter. What do you mean? They're waiting for me to look away, like they're playing some kind of game. But their faces. The line hissed again as if something brushed against the phone. I could hear his pulse in his voice when he came back. They don't have faces anymore. I stopped typing. My headset felt suddenly heavy. There was a deep creak in the background, then silence. You still there? I asked. Yeah. What's happening now? They stopped. I didn't know whether that was good or bad. My eyes flicked to the dispatch screen again. ETA for the nearest unit. 22 minutes. Too long. Then something odd hit me. The silence on his end wasn't total. There was a low, humming sound under his voice. It wasn't machinery. It was more like a tune. Barely there. Just 3 notes, over and over like someone humming from a distance. Sir, do you hear that? Hear what? That sound. The phone shifted in his grip. Oh God, one of them's on the porch. There was a heavy knock. Not a normal knock. 3 slow raps, too far apart, as if whoever or whatever was doing it didn't understand the rhythm. His breathing quickened. They know I'm talking to you. I leaned in toward the mic. Stay calm. Keep the line open. Then something happened that I still can't explain. His voice got quieter, but I could tell he hadn't moved. There's no phone in my hand. I froze. Sir, I'm holding it, but it's not mine. His tone was almost childlike now, like he'd lost track of where he was. It's warm. I pulled the mic closer, my pulse pounding. Sir, listen to me. The knock came again, louder this time, and then a whisper, so faint I almost missed it. Not from him, from somewhere right next to the receiver. It said, "Let us in." I felt the hair on my arms stand straight up. Sir, you need to leave the house now, I said firmly. Go out the back door, don't look at them. His voice turned sharp, angry. No, you don't get it. If I go outside, it's worse. What's worse? They follow you. I stared at the timer on the call. It had only been 4 minutes. It felt like 20. Then, without warning, he screamed again. Not in fear, more like pain. Like something had stabbed him. The sound cut off so suddenly I thought the line had dropped. And then nothing but breathing. Not his. Too deep, too slow. Sir, the breathing stopped. A quiet tapping began. Rhythmic. Metal on wood, maybe. I couldn't place it. And then the line went dead. I sat there, frozen, staring at the darkened screen. When the sheriff's office finally radioed in, they said the house was empty. No lights. No signs of struggle. Just the front door hanging wide, open, and muddy footprints leading off into the dark field. 5 sets of them died. I kept the line open. After that first call from a man on county line, I didn't want to risk losing him again. His voice had been so raw, so ragged, it still echoed in my head. He told me his name was David. His breathing was loud, uneven. I could hear the wind in the background, except there wasn't any weather alert. No storms, just that low, moving air. I tried to calm him. I told him to stay put, to stay on the phone, and that help was on the way. But every time I asked him what he was seeing, there'd be these gaps, pauses where he didn't answer. Not because he didn't hear me, but because he seemed to be listening to something else. David, I'd say, talk to me. And then, faint, almost swallowed by the static. They're closer. I asked who. The shadows. The first time he said it, I thought maybe it was just the darkness, his mind playing tricks. I've heard that 1,000 times. People thinking they see something moving when the lights go out. But the way he said it, it wasn't just fear. It was like he was trying to convince himself of it. Like he'd already decided they were real. He was in a small, single-story house at the edge of field. No neighbors for maybe half a mile in either direction. And the blackout had hit everything. The grid was down for miles. The only light he had was the little glow from a cordless phone screen, which meant he was probably sitting in complete blackness, holding it to his face. I told him to find a flashlight. That was my mistake, because the moment he clicked it on, the line went dead. Not a disconnect, not a busy tone. Just gone. Dead silence. I stared at the screen for a second, then hit redial. It rang and rang. Finally, he picked up, his voice shaking so badly I could barely understand him. Don't make me turn on the light again. I told him I didn't make him do anything. I was just trying to help him see where he was going. No, he said, his voice breaking. They move when it's dark, but they find me when there's light. I asked him what he meant, but then there was this sound, like someone brushing against the receiver, and his voice dropped to a whisper. They know now. I've taken some strange calls in my life, but there was something about his tone that made my skin go cold. I asked him where he was in the house. Hallway. By the bedroom. Do you have a back door? Yes. Can you make it there without turning on a light? He didn't answer for a long time. Then I heard footsteps, slow, careful ones. The floorboards under him creaked like they were holding their breath. David? You there? They're outside the windows. I told him to stay away from them. They're not people. The way he said it, there was no doubt in his mind. Not a question. Not a maybe. Just a flat, certain truth he'd already lived with for too long. Okay, I said, keeping my voice steady. Then don't look. Just focus on my voice. Keep talking to me. But he didn't. The longer I listened, the more I realized he wasn't breathing like he was scared anymore. It was quieter, controlled, almost like he was listening with them. Then, without warning, he whispered, "They're at the door." I told him to get to the back. They'll be there too. David. Click. Dead line again. This time when he picked back up, I asked him if he was turning on a light when the call dropped. He hesitated. Yes. Just for a second. I didn't know what to say, so I asked him why. I wanted to see if they were still there. And they were closer. The way he said closer made something deep in me twist. Like there was no point in him even trying to move anymore. I told him not to turn the lights on again, no matter what. He said he understood, but a few seconds later, the line went dead. I redialed instantly. When he answered, there was a new sound in the background. A deep, rhythmic knocking. Not frantic, not random, almost patient. They don't knock, he whispered. That's just to make me turn around. I asked him where it was coming from. He didn't know. Do you think you can get to the kitchen? I asked. There might be something you can use to defend yourself. More silence. Then the faint shuffle of bare feet on wood. A quick inhale, like he'd just seen something. They're inside. My throat went dry. I told him to lock himself in a room. He didn't answer. I heard the phone move against his shirt, like he was pressing it to his chest. Through the muffled static, I caught something, a voice. It was his voice. Not an echo, not a recording, but it had that strange distortion, like hearing someone talk through water. It was saying his own name, over and over. David, David, David. Soft, almost coaxing. When he put the phone back to his ear, he was breathing hard again. They're copying me. I wanted to tell him he was hallucinating, but something told me he wasn't. Something in my gut told me that if I said that, if I tried to explain it away, I'd lose him completely. So I told him to keep talking. And for a little while, he did. Just nonsense. His childhood street, the color of his first bike, a fishing trip with his dad, like he was trying to drown out whatever else he was hearing. And then, click, dead again. When I called back, it rang longer this time. He answered, but I could barely hear him over this scraping sound, like nails on the outside wall. Long, slow drags. They don't like it when I talk to you. Who? They want me to be quiet. At that point, I knew I was stalling. There was no guarantee help was going to reach him in time. The blackout had taken out all the stoplights between his place and the main road. Even if an officer was close, they'd be crawling through total darkness. And from what David was telling me, Darkness was exactly where these things lived. David, listen to me. If you can get to the back door, I want you to go. Right now. I could hear his breath in my ear, shaky but faster now, like he was building up the nerve. Then, a sound I'll never forget. Footsteps. Too many to be just him. Coming from all sides. He whispered my name, and I realized I never told him my name. That's when the phone went dead. I didn't call back right away. I just sat there, holding the receiver, staring at the dim glow of the console. The room felt colder, the air heavier. When I finally redialed, it went a voicemail. Except it wasn't a voicemail greeting. It was him, saying my name, over and over, just like the voice I'd heard in the background. That was 2 nights ago. We haven't found him yet. I remember the rain stopped just before we pulled up to the house. No wind, no movement, just this heavy stillness that made my skin feel too tight. The cruiser's headlights cut through the mist, sweeping over the front porch. Paint peeled from the railing in curled strips, and the front door hung slightly open. Not wide enough to see in, just cracked. Like someone had left in a hurry, but not enough to slam it behind them. The call came in maybe 40 minutes ago, screaming about shadows. No lights, then silence. I'd expected a blackout, maybe a downline. But as we drove in, I noticed every house on the road had lights glowing warm behind curtains. Porch lamps still on. A TV flickering in a living room window. It was only here. Only this place. Power company says lines are fine, Miller muttered beside me, checking the radio again. No outages reported. Not even a surge. It didn't make sense. I glanced up at the poles. The wires stretched over our heads, swaying slightly from the rain's weight. Intact. No damage. No reason for darkness. We stepped out of the car. My boots sank a little into the soft dirt, the air thick with the smell of wet leaves, and something else, something faint and metallic. The porch groaned under our weight. I shone my flashlight through the open door. It was just black inside. Not night black. Not shadow black. It felt thicker, like the beam couldn't push through more than a few feet before it drowned in it. Miller, you feel that? I whispered. He stopped. Feel what? I didn't have an answer. It was like the air in there was heavier. A slow, almost pressing weight. My ears rang faintly, like we'd stepped near some invisible machine. We went in. The living room was empty. Furniture in place, a coffee cup still sitting on the table, a thin curl of steam rising off it even now. Like someone had just been sitting there, took a sip, then gone. Miller to dispatch. We're inside. Static hissed back. He frowned, tapped the mic, tried again. Static. He turned to me. You try. I lifted my radio. Unit 2-4. We're at the scene, moving to search. Nothing. Just that same dry hiss. That wasn't right. We'd had perfect reception outside. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with framed family photos. My light flickered over them. Smiling faces, birthdays, beach trips, but every frame had something wrong. A reflection in the glass that didn't belong. An arm around someone's shoulders, but no one was there. A blur where a face should be. I moved on, trying not to look too long. In the kitchen, the power was definitely dead. The fridge sat in the corner, humming faintly, then stopping, like it couldn't decide if it was working. The overhead light was off, but the switch was still flipped to on. Miller tried the sink. Water gurgled weakly out, brown and cold. We went upstairs. Every step creaked. The second floor smelled faintly of dust and old sweat. There was a master bedroom at the end of the hall, the door wide open. We stepped in and I froze. The bed was made, but on the covers lay a pair of shoes. Men's work boots, neatly side by side. And inside them, stuffed deep, were socks balled up. I don't know why that made my stomach twist, but it did. There was a closet in the corner. The door was shut, but something inside shifted, just barely, like fabric brushing against fabric. I raised my flashlight. Hello, Sheriff's Department. No answer. Miller stepped forward, yanked the door open. Empty, just coats swaying on their hangers, but slower than they should have. Like the air in there was thick, resisting. We searched every room. No sign of the caller. No sign of anyone. When we got back downstairs, I noticed something. Out the front windows, every other house on the street was still lit. But now, there were fewer of them. 2 houses down, the lights were out. Across the road, a porch lamp flickered, then died. Miller, I said quietly. It's spreading. He followed my gaze. We both watched as, one by one, lights blinked out along the street. No storm, no wind, just darkness crawling closer. We stepped outside. I tried my radio again, still nothing. The cruiser's headlights sputtered, dimmed. The engine coughed, then silence. A cold pulse went through me, the kind that makes your spine feel hollow. I turned back toward the house, and that's when I saw it. In the living room window, where there'd been nothing before, was a shape. Tall, still, almost human. It didn't move when I shone my light on it. The beam hit the glass, but inside the light just died. It didn't bounce, didn't illuminate anything. It was like the window was looking into somewhere else entirely. Miller, we need to go, I said. He didn't answer. I turned. He was staring down the street. Every single house now was dark except one. The last one before the bend. Its windows were still glowing faintly, like a candle behind paper. Miller, I said again. He finally looked at me, his face pale. Dispatch isn't answering. If this hits the center. I knew. The dispatch building was on the same grid as half the county. If it spread there, everything, phones, radios, lines would be gone. We ran to the cruiser. It wouldn't start. Miller popped the hood, but even the battery looked wrong. The metal had a faint black sheen, as if something had sucked the shine out of it. We decided to head back on foot. The road was slick, the night too quiet. Behind us, the darkness seemed to breathe. You could feel it, not wind, but something moving, closing in. Halfway to the intersection, my radio crackled. A voice came through, faint, warped. Officer, you have to leave, it's... Then static. Miller, did you hear that? He didn't answer. I turned. He was gone. Just gone. No sound. No footprints in the mud. I spun around, heart hammering, shining my light in every direction. All I saw was the dark, and somewhere in it, the faintest ripple, like a shadow, shifting against itself. I ran. I don't know how long. My breath burned. My legs felt heavy, but I didn't stop until the dispatch tower came into view, its red light blinking steady against the black sky. The parking lot was empty. Too empty. I burst through the door. The room was dim, lit only by the green glow of backup monitors. The main boards were down. No phone lines active. No hum from the servers. I called out. My voice echoed in the stillness. Then I noticed the clock on the wall. It was frozen. 2:47 a.m. The second hand wasn't moving. My flashlight flickered. The green monitor light dimmed. Outside, through the glass, the darkness had reached the lot. It was curling around the edges, seeping in like smoke through invisible cracks. I stood there, breathing hard, listening to the quiet press in. And, for the first time in my life, I realized we weren't dealing with a blackout. We were dealing with something alive that I didn't even know payphones still existed. Not in this part of the state, anyway. It was 2:46 a.m. when the line clicked through. No ringtone, no static buildup, just the sudden, hard presence of a call waiting to be answered. 911, what's your emergency? For a few seconds, there was only breathing. Slow, hollow, like it was traveling up through a narrow pipe before reaching me. You're still here. The voice was quiet. Male, maybe mid-30s, but there was something off about it. Something too even. No tremor, no panic. Just the sound of someone stating a fact. Sir, this is emergency dispatch. Can you tell me your location? There was a pause. Then, calmly, I'm at the last street light. I sat forward in my chair, pen poised over the call log sheet. Which street light? What town are you in? Down the main road. Can't miss it. It's the only one still on. I glanced at the console screen. No caller ID, no number. Just the words unknown filling the space where a number should have been. Sir, I need an address. The man let out a small, humorless laugh. You won't find it. It's gone. But I thought you should know. I saw them. The shadows. My stomach tightened. Shadows. Again. We'd had maybe 6 calls in the past week mentioning them. Different voices, different towns, same word. Shadows. Sir, when you say shadows, what exactly do you mean? He didn't answer right away. Just breathed, slow and steady. Then he said, they move without light. That's how you know. I opened my mouth to ask another question when the background behind his voice began to shift. I could hear something. Wind? No, it was too steady, too low. It was more like the deep, throaty hum of electrical wires. I pictured him standing under a tall streetlight, the yellow glow spilling down over cracked pavement, everything else swallowed by night. Then he said something that made my pen slip across the page. I remember you. My mind snagged on the words. Sir, do we know each other? You were here before. Long time ago, when the fire came through. You were younger then. You had that. He cut himself off, like the words got caught in his throat. I stared at the mic in front of me, my mouth dry. I'd never been to a fire scene like that in my life. I'd only been working dispatch for 3 years. Sir, I think you may be confused. Can you tell me the town you're in? We can send someone to help. There was another pause. Then, they won't make it. Not before the light goes out. I glanced toward the other desks in the room. 2 other dispatchers were on calls, oblivious to mine. I thought about signaling to them, but something in me hesitated. Some stupid, animal part of me didn't want anyone else hearing this. Sir, listen to me. You need to get somewhere safe. Where exactly is this last streetlight? He took a slow breath and said the name. A single word, and it froze me. I hadn't heard it since I was a kid. Weller's Crossing. It was the kind of name you only saw in faded history books at the library. A mining town, small, tight-knit, and dead for over 50 years. The mine had collapsed in the winter of 1968, killing almost everyone underground. The rest had moved away. The town was abandoned before my parents were even born. Sir, I said carefully, that town doesn't exist anymore. Another humorless laugh. Then I guess neither do I. The hum in the background grew louder, almost buzzing now. And underneath it, faintly, I thought I could hear something else. Footsteps. Sir, where are you standing right now? Under the light. Just like last time. Last time, the wind, or whatever it was, shifted in his mic. His voice got lower. They're waiting in the dark. They're patient. They'll move when it's gone. I looked at the clock on the wall. 2:50 a.m. Sir, I'm going to keep you on the line until help gets there. Okay? Just stay with me. He didn't answer. For a few seconds, I thought the call had dropped. Then I realized he was whispering something, so faint I could barely catch it. Getting closer. I straightened in my chair. What's getting closer? Sir, speak up. The shadows. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white. Sir, listen to me. And then I heard it. A dull pop in the background, like a breaker tripping. And then the hum stopped. He let out a shaky breath. It's gone. The line crackled with faint static, and I thought I heard movement, fast, shuffling movement, like someone running across gravel. Sir, nothing. Sir, are you there? A long pause. Then, in a voice so quiet it barely sounded human. They're here. And the call went dead. I tried to trace it. Try to pull up anything, coordinates, switchboard logs, carrier data. But it was like the call had never happened. The weirdest part? Not 5 minutes later, our power flickered. Just for a second. But in that second, every monitor in the room went black. When they came back on, the map display was wrong. The green dots that marked active service areas had shifted. A dark patch had formed around our county. Expanding. Slowly. I didn't tell anyone. Not then. But later that night, when my shift was over, I got in my car and started driving. I don't know why. I told myself I just wanted to see. I took the old state road north. Past the last gas station, the last working traffic light, the last house with a lit porch. The road narrowed, cracked. The trees thickened. I almost turned around when I saw it. Up ahead, maybe 100 yards away, there was a single glow cutting through the dark. A pale yellow circle on the pavement. A streetlight. I pulled over, my hands tied on the wheel. The air was still. Too still. No wind, no bugs, no distant highway hum. Just silence. The light itself looked wrong. The glow didn't fade out naturally. It stopped sharply like it was pushing against something. Beyond it, the darkness looked thicker. And then I saw the payphone. It stood a few feet from the base of the pole. Old, rusted, half-covered in peeling stickers. The metal cord hung limp, the receiver swinging slightly even though there was no wind. I didn't get out of the car. I just sat there, staring, my pulse hammering in my ears. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw movement at the edge of the light. Tall, thin, wrong. I blinked, and it was gone. The receiver stopped swinging. I left. I didn't even turn the car around. I just threw it in reverse until I could back onto the main road, then drove until I saw the first familiar sign. When I got home, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring out the window at the streetlight across from my apartment. The hum of its wires had always been background noise to me. Comforting. But that night, I noticed it flicker, and I swear, just before it steadied again, I saw something move without light that I've taken thousands of calls in my career. Some were routine, fender benders, noise complaints, drunks stumbling into the wrong house. Others, well, they were bad. Bad enough that I still hear them in my sleep. But this one was different from the very first second. It was just after midnight when the call came in. The office was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels heavier than usual, like the silence itself is listening. The phone rang once. Twice. I picked it up on the third. 911. What's your emergency? For a moment, I thought the line was dead. No sound at all. No breathing, no background noise, nothing. I was about to repeat myself when a voice came through. It was a woman. Soft. Trembling. She spoke so quietly, I almost didn't catch it. Do you see her too? I froze, pen hovering over the incident log. Ma'am, can you repeat that? There was a pause. Then, almost like she was leaning closer to the phone, she whispered again. Do you see her too? I tried to keep my voice steady. Ma'am, who are you talking about? Are you in danger right now? Her breathing hitched, and I finally heard something in the background, a faint tapping. Steady, like fingertips on glass. She's outside my window, the woman said. She's been there for an hour, just standing there. My mind snapped into protocol. Okay, can you tell me your address? There was another pause, but not because she didn't know it. It felt like she was deciding whether to trust me. 48 Pine Ridge, she finally said. I typed it in, half listening to the way her voice shook. Pine Ridge was on the edge of town, a street with only a few houses, bordered by woods. Not the kind of place you wanted uninvited guests. All right, stay on the line with me. Can you describe her? The person at your window? Silence again. And then the faintest, almost childlike laugh. Not from her, from somewhere near her. She's smiling, the woman said. She hasn't blinked once. That sentence, I don't know why it got under my skin so bad, but it did. I felt a cold trickle run down my spine. What does she look like? I asked. Like me, the woman whispered. I froze. I mean, I've had callers describe stalkers before, but never like that. Like you, I asked carefully. Yes. Same hair. Same face. Same clothes. She's wearing what I'm wearing right now. Her voice cracked on the last word. The tapping on the glass was louder now. Sharper. Ma'am, listen to me. Do not approach the window. I've got officers on the way. Are your doors locked? Yes, but she keeps asking to come in. She's talking to you? No, she said, and I heard the tears in her voice. She's talking to you. I swear to God. I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman's breath hitched again. She says you see her too. I glanced instinctively at the office window beside me. Pitch black. My own reflection staring back. No one else. Ma'am, I started, trying to keep my tone calm. There's no one here with me. Just stay where you are. Keep away from the window. But she wasn't listening anymore. Her voice had gone distant, like she'd stepped away from the phone. She's moving, she whispered. She's walking to the back door. I could hear the creak of her floorboards. The faint scrape of something sliding along the glass. Stay away from the door, I said firmly. Lock yourself in a room if you can. Officers are 3 minutes out. She's faster than them, the woman murmured. And then, very suddenly, the line filled with a strange static. Not the normal kind. It wasn't a hiss. It was almost like whispering, layered voices. Dozens of them, talking over each other in a language I couldn't place. Through it, the woman's voice came back, frantic now. She's in the house. The call cut. I tried calling back immediately. No answer. The officers arrived at the address 5 minutes later. The house was dark, doors locked, no signs of forced entry. But the woman, she wasn't there. The strange part? That house had been empty for years. The last resident was a woman named Marcy Holloway. She'd been found dead in her bedroom over a decade ago, right beside the window. They ruled it natural causes. But the old reports, they mentioned something odd. When the paramedics found her, her body was cold. Her eyes were open, and she was smiling. That night, I didn't go home right away. I just sat there at my desk, staring at the black reflection in my window, replaying her words in my head. Do you see her too? I still don't know who she was talking about. I just know I haven't looked too long into a window since. Because I'm scared that one night, maybe I will see her. And she'll be smiling at me. I didn't sleep much after that call. Not because it was unusual. Calls like that happen more often than you'd think. But because of the way she asked me that question. Do you see her too? It sat in my head all night, looping like a bad song. I tried to picture her voice, her face, her house, but it was just fragments. A tone that shook between scared and something else. By the time my next shift came around, I told myself I'd chalk it up to another paranoid caller. Someone lonely. Someone wanting attention. We're taught not to dwell on them for our own sanity. But I did. The room felt the same when I walked in. Faint hum of the old HVAC, the glow of monitors on each desk, the low murmur of voices from other dispatchers. We all worked in this big, square room, rows of desks facing forward like school, except instead of chalkboards we had screens, phones, and a constant feed of emergencies. I sat down in my usual spot, desk 4, second row from the back, and tried to ease into the night. Checked my headset, sipped some lukewarm coffee. I even told myself I'd be fine as long as I didn't think about her. The first couple of hours went normally. Noise complaints, a drunk driver, a domestic disturbance. Nothing unusual. Then, a little after midnight, my line lit up. 911, what's your emergency? Silence at first, just faint breathing. Then I heard it. Her voice. It's me, she said softly. She's back. I sat up a little straighter. Is this? I stopped. We're not supposed to say names unless the caller gives them. You remember, she said, like she could hear me hesitate. The one in the window. A tight knot formed in my stomach. Okay, you're saying there's someone outside your home again? She's not outside anymore. Her voice was low, shaky. She's closer, and she's watching you now. I froze for a second. Ma'am, where exactly are you seeing this person? She's just behind you, the woman said, standing by the wall. You're not turning around, but you know she's there, don't you? I glanced over at the glass wall across from my desk. It looked into the hall where the supervisor's offices were. Empty, just pale reflection from the overhead lights. Ma'am, I need to focus on your location right now, I said. What's your address? You're not getting it, she whispered. She's moving. She's walking past your left shoulder now. My skin prickled. I caught myself looking at the other dispatchers, half expecting one of them to notice something. No one did. They were buried in their own calls, typing and nodding along to whatever they were hearing. I decided to keep her talking while trying to flag my supervisor. All right, ma'am, let's slow down. Can you describe this person again? She's tall, black hair. Her skin's too pale, almost gray, like she hasn't been outside in years. Her voice trembled, but not in fear, more like awe. And her hands are so thin, like claws without nails. I try not to react. Okay, and you're sure you're talking about someone in my location? She's watching you right now. You don't see her. I pressed the mute button and waved for Jim, our floor supervisor. When he walked over, I unmuted. Ma'am, I'm not seeing anyone behind me, I said, forcing calm into my voice. She's right next to you now. She's leaning over. She's looking at your screen. She's reading what you're typing. Jim glanced at my monitor, brows furrowing. What the hell is she talking about? His expression seemed to say. I muted again and whispered. Same caller as last night. Now she's saying she sees someone here in the room. He frowned. Could be a prank. Keep her talking. Try to get the location. I nodded and unmuted. Ma'am, I'm here to help, but I need your address. There was a pause. I heard her breathing change, slower now, almost careful. You're leaning forward, she said. My heart thumped harder. What? You just moved your chair forward. You're holding the mic closer. Why are you doing that? I felt cold run through my chest. She wasn't guessing. She was describing exactly what I was doing in real time. Ma'am, how do you know that? I asked quietly. She's telling me, the woman whispered. She's whispering it into my ear. I turned my head slightly, scanning the room again. Everyone else was still in their own worlds. Where are you right now? I asked, Try to anchor this to something physical. In my living room, curtains closed, lights off. She's sitting on my couch, facing me. But she's not looking at me anymore. She's looking through me. At you. Jim crouched beside me. You're pale. What's going on? I covered the mic. She's describing me. Exactly. Even what I'm doing right now. He looked uneasy. End it. Get the number traced. I nodded, unmuted again. Ma'am, I'm going to have someone come check on you. Can you stay on the line? But she didn't answer that. Instead, she said, she's smiling now. Do you see her too? The words hit me in the chest. My hand actually trembled on the mouse. Ma'am, I do not see anyone here, I said, slower, firmer. But I need you to stay safe until officers arrive. You're lying, she said simply. I tried to pull the call history to see if her number matched last night's. But the ID read private, just like before. She's leaving now, the woman said suddenly. She's walking away from you, going toward the door at the end of your row. That door was real. It led to the break room. Jim and I both turned our heads. It was closed. No one moving. Now she's gone, the woman said. The line went dead. The trace came back empty. Number blocked. No record in the system. It was like the call had never happened. I went through the rest of my shift in a fog, hyper-aware of every movement in my peripheral vision, every reflection in the glass. By the time I clocked out, I was telling myself she had to be messing with me. Maybe a disgruntled former dispatcher who knew the room layout. Maybe she had an inside connection. That would explain the details. Except, when I got home, I pulled my blinds shut tight. And for the first time in a long time, I avoided looking out my own windows. Because part of me kept hearing her voice, soft, calm, certain. She's looking at your screen. She's reading what you're typing. When I came in for my shift the next day, I didn't even want to sit at my desk. I'd barely slept, and when I did, I dreamed of my reflection, except it didn't blink when I did. It just stared. It stared the way she did on the call. I kept telling myself it was just stress, that the woman was either confused, lying, or maybe even messing with me. People do weird things on 911 lines. Some are lonely, some are mentally ill, and some just want to see if they can scare you. But the part that wouldn't leave my head was how she described me. Not just someone at my desk. She described the angle of my arm, the way my head tilted while I listened to her, even a scratch on my knuckle from the day before when I caught it on the metal drawer. She shouldn't have known any of that. When I sat down, Dispatch Supervisor Mark handed me a flash drive. Security footage, he said, from her building. You said she saw a man at her window. I nodded, my mouth dry. Footage covers the exact window, she said he was at. The whole time you were on the phone with her. And he paused, like he was trying to decide how much to say. You should just watch it yourself. So I did. It was grainy black and white, timestamp in the bottom corner. Camera was angled up toward the side of a brick building. Third floor window, closed blinds except for a narrow gap. For 10 straight minutes, nothing moved. No man standing there. No shadow crossing the gap. No hint of anyone at all. The only motion was a curtain shifting slightly from the air vent inside. I felt my stomach sink, but not in the way I expected. I thought I'd feel relief, proof that she was wrong. But instead, it made something colder spread through me. Because I'd heard her breathing change on the call. I'd heard her whisper that he was leaning closer, that his hand was on the glass. I'd felt her fear, and she'd been so sure. I rewound the video, looking for anything, an odd flicker, a glitch, a shadow that shouldn't be there. But it was just empty. Mark stepped into the room while I was watching. Anything? I shook my head. She still swears she saw someone, he said. Called again this morning. Same story. Says he's still there. Still? I asked. He nodded. And still describing you. I laughed a little, but it came out wrong. Too sharp. Well, maybe she just memorized me from yesterday. Mark didn't smile. She described what you were wearing today. I froze, because I hadn't even been wearing this shirt when I came in. I'd spilled coffee on my first one in the break room and changed into my spare about 10 minutes ago. She didn't see me change, I said quietly. Mark gave me a look I couldn't read, then said, You want me to take the call if she rings again? No, I said too fast. No, I'll take it. I don't know why I said that. Maybe some part of me wanted to prove to myself that this was just a coincidence. Or maybe I needed to hear her voice again to figure out what she was really doing. The call came in at 9:42 p.m. Unknown number. Female caller. Same apartment complex. I answered, and before I could even get my greeting out, she whispered, "You're not looking at me right now." The line went dead silent. "Yes," I said slowly. "I'm on the phone with you right now. Can you tell me what's happening?" "He's here," she breathed. "The man from last night. He's right at the glass." I glanced at the security feed on the side monitor. They'd patched her building's cameras into our system, just in case. The grainy view of her window showed nothing. Just still blinds and empty air. "What's he doing?" I asked. "He's smiling," she said. "Your smile." I felt something shift in my chest. "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm and—" He's leaning forward now, just like you. Elbows on the desk. Head tilted the same way. Same shirt. Same little line between your eyebrows. My skin prickled. "How can you see that much detail?" I asked. "I'm looking right at you." The words were so soft, so certain, that I almost turned to look behind me. The feed still showed nothing. "Can you describe the room behind him?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. White walls. Old calendar with no dates marked. A mug with a chip in the rim. The one you keep on your right. I looked at the mug. It was sitting exactly where she said. "Ma'am, you're looking through a window in your apartment. There is no way you can see this desk." She ignored me. "He's not blinking anymore. You're blinking, but he isn't." I swallowed hard. "Can you move away from the window? Find a safer spot." Silence. "Ma'am." Her voice was different when she spoke again. Not scared. Curious. "Do you know what you look like when you're not breathing?" I didn't answer, because I had no idea why, but my chest felt tight, and I realized I'd been holding my breath without meaning to. The line clicked, and she was gone. I sat there, staring at the empty feed, my pulse hammering in my ears. Mark came over. She hung up. I nodded. She said, I stopped myself. I didn't want to repeat it out loud. We called the local PD to do another wellness check. They went to her apartment. They knocked for 5 minutes. No answer. No signs of forced entry. They said the blinds were shut, same as always. The officer radioed in. No one at the window. No one matching the description. But then, almost as an afterthought, he said, "Weird thing, though. We could swear we heard talking inside. Like a man's voice. Calm low. But every time we stopped to listen, it stopped too. That was 3 nights ago. She hasn't called back since. But here's the thing. Every night since, I've caught myself looking at the reflection in my dark monitor after I log off. Not my reflection. Not exactly. The eyes don't blink when I do. I don't remember when I first noticed the glass. Or maybe I do, but my brain's been trying to convince me I imagined it. It was 3:41 a.m., the quietest part of my shift. The hum of the monitors, the faint rattle of the AC vent above my head, the occasional static hiss from an open channel. The kind of quiet that feels wrong in a dispatch room. You're used to people screaming, alarms blaring, phones ringing over each other. But that night, it was like the whole county was holding its breath. I was just sitting there, staring at the triple monitor setup, sipping what was left of my coffee, the same bitter sludge I've been nursing since midnight. I glanced over at the glass partition that separates my desk from the hallway. It's just a plain, tinted panel. Thick, reflective if the lights hit it right. Usually, it's just a blurry echo of the room, shapes, shadows, the dull glow of the monitors behind me. But this time, I froze, because my reflection was smiling. I wasn't. It wasn't even a subtle thing, like maybe my lips had twitched without me realizing. No, my face in the glass had teeth. My eyes in the reflection were squinted the way people's eyes get when they're really grinning. My cheeks looked pulled, tense, like my reflection was trying to hold back a laugh. I sat there staring at it, my real face locked, my mouth pressed into a thin, flat line. And still in the glass, that grin. It held for maybe 5 seconds before it stopped. Just relaxed back into the neutral expression I was wearing. I remember swallowing hard. My throat felt dry, and my hands were suddenly clammy against the desk. I told myself it was a trick of the light, that the glare from the monitors was catching my reflection in some weird way. I turned slightly in my chair, shifting the angle. But the glass didn't change. I tried to laugh it off. I told myself I'd been staring at a screen too long. My eyes were fried. Maybe I'd imagined it. Except, An hour later, it happened again. This time I caught it mid-change. I looked up, and my reflection was already pulling into that smile. The kind of smile you'd see from someone who knows something you don't. My lips in the glass peeled back a fraction too far. My teeth. God, my teeth in the reflection were wrong. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until my chest started to ache. I did the only thing my brain could come up with at the time. I covered the glass with my jacket. I didn't want to see it anymore. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The first call of the morning came at 4:28 a.m. Woman in her late 30s. Trembling voice. She said she lived in one of the newer apartment complexes off Holloway Drive, top floor. She said, "There's a man at my window." Her tone was more confused than panicked, like she couldn't quite process what she was looking at. She kept saying it wasn't possible. She was on the 6th floor. When I asked her to describe him, she went quiet for a long time. I thought the call had dropped. Then she whispered, "It's you." I blinked at the screen, unsure I'd heard right. "Ma'am, can you repeat that?" She said, "It's you. You're at my window." I tried to stay calm, even though something cold and heavy slid down my spine. "Ma'am, I'm the dispatch center. I promise you. You're wearing exactly what you're wearing now," she said, cutting me off. "Black hoodie, headset, even your hands. You're holding a pen the same way you're holding it right now." I looked down. I was holding my pen the same way I always did, twirling it between my fingers while I talked. The hair on my arm stood up. I kept my voice steady, asked her to stay away from the window, to lock all her doors. But she said something that made my skin crawl. "I don't need to move." "He's not moving. He's just smiling." I put her on hold for less than 10 seconds while I contacted a unit. When I came back, she was still whispering, her breath shaky in the receiver. Except there was another sound. A faint, wet sound, like lips smacking together, like someone smiling too wide. Officers got to her place about 12 minutes later. She didn't answer the door at first. When she finally did, they found her standing in the middle of the living room, shaking. Her window was locked. No footprints on the balcony. No sign of anyone outside. The building's exterior cameras didn't show anyone near her apartment. But here's the thing. I got a copy of the footage later. I wish I hadn't, because the timestamp matched exactly when she said she saw me. And while there was nobody on that balcony, the faint reflection in her glass window, it was me, grinning. After that, I started avoiding the glass partition in the dispatch room. I kept my head down, my eyes on my monitors, my jacket draped over that panel, so I wouldn't catch anything out of the corner of my eye. But it didn't matter, because the glass wasn't the only place it happened anymore. 2 nights later, I was leaning over to refill my coffee when I caught my reflection in the surface of the pot, and it winked at me. I dropped the coffee. It splattered across the counter, hot enough to sting through my hoodie. That same week, I saw in the black screen of my phone before it lit up, in the side mirror of my car, even in the darkened surface of a monitor before it booted up. Always smiling, always looking right at me. I started losing sleep, not because I was scared, at least that's what I told myself, but because I was afraid of closing my eyes and seeing that grin burn into the dark. It didn't help that the calls were starting to sound familiar. Not the usual emergencies. Not the panicked, half-coherent shouts. These were slower, stranger. People would call to say they'd seen someone outside, and when I asked them to describe the person, they'd say things like, "It looked just like you," or "He smiled at me." One guy even said, "You were standing in my hallway, but you're still on the phone, so I don't get it." I didn't either. Last night was the worst. I was the only one in the room. My partner had stepped out for a smoke. I was just sitting there, staring at the quiet monitors when I heard a faint tapping. Not on the door, on the glass partition. I didn't look. I just couldn't. The tapping got faster. I thought maybe it was the AC vent rattling. I told myself that, even as I felt my pulse pounding in my neck. Then the tapping stopped. I looked up. My reflection was back. Only this time, it wasn't just smiling. It was moving, slowly, subtly, leaning closer to the glass while I sat frozen. Its head tilted. My head didn't. Its lips moved. No sound, just the shape of the words. It mouthed, "Let me in." I don't remember standing up. I just know I stumbled back into the corner of the room, knocking my chair over. My reflection stood there in the glass, shoulders rising like it was laughing, though my own chest was still. The grin stretched wider than I thought my face could go. The teeth looked sharper, the eyes darker. Then it stopped, and I was just looking at myself again. Except my lips were still moving, and I didn't know what they were saying. I haven't told anyone about this, because there's nothing anyone could do. There's no report to file, no law that covers whatever this is. But if it gets worse, if I start seeing him somewhere that isn't just glass or reflections, I think that'll be the end of it. Because I know the second I see him outside of a reflection, it'll already be too late. That it was a little after midnight when the phones went quiet. That's the thing about this job. The silence feels worse than the chaos. You sit there in that fluorescent hum, with your headset balanced against your temple, staring at a row of dead lights. No ringing, no voices, just you, the breathing, and whatever's in your head. Most nights, the downtime is when my thoughts start pressing in. You'd think I'd be grateful for the break, but I'm not. Because when it's quiet, there's nothing to distract you from what's in the glass in front of you. That's not a poetic thing. I literally mean the glass. They got these big panes separating our desk row from the supervisor's office, so you can see everyone and everything in these stretched, warped reflections. If the overhead bulbs hit it right, you don't just see your face, you see the tired version of it. The one that doesn't blink when you do. The call came in just when I was looking at that reflection. The phone lit up, sharp green against the dim, and I snapped to it. 911. What's your emergency? There was this pause. Not the usual kind where someone's scared or doesn't know what to say. No, this one felt like someone was listening to me breathe. I could hear faint static, but it was too clean to be a butt dial. Then the voice came. My voice. Is this the real one? It asked. I didn't answer at first. I just sat there, staring at the blinking call timer on my screen, thinking maybe I'd misheard. Maybe it was someone who just sounded similar. But then it spoke again. You have to tell me the truth. Are you the real one? I almost laughed because it was absurd. I've had prank calls before, but they're usually drunk teens or bored night shift workers. This was different. The tone, the exact rhythm of the way I speak. Even the way it inhaled sounded like me. Sir, this is a 911 line. Do you have an emergency? I kept my voice flat, professional. It ignored the question. You're sitting at the desk. You're wearing the blue shirt. You're touching your left ear right now. I froze. I wasn't touching my ear when he said it, but I was about to scratch it. That exact motion. My hand was halfway there. I let it drop to the desk. Who is this? I asked. You know who I am, it said. And the thing is, it didn't sound threatening. It sounded scared. Scared in a way that made my chest tighten. I don't think you understand what's happening yet. You need to look at the glass. I glanced at the big pane in front of me. My reflection was there. Same tired eyes, same dull hair hanging forward. Keep looking, the voice said. I did, and after a second, I realized the reflection wasn't quite right. My head was tilted in the glass, just slightly, and my mouth was moving. But I wasn't speaking. I must have blinked 5 times, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light. The movement in the reflection didn't match mine anymore. It smiled. Wide. Too wide. And my headset in the reflection was on the wrong ear. The voice in my headset whispered, You're not me. I slammed the mute button and yanked the headset halfway off, scanning the room. The other dispatchers were all focused on their own calls, oblivious. My supervisor was behind the glass, head down over paperwork. When I unmuted, the voice had gone quiet. All I heard was static, then a soft click like the call had ended. The line went dead. I sat there, breathing hard, waiting for the phone to ring again. It didn't. Not for another 20 minutes. When it did, I almost didn't answer. But protocol is protocol. 911, what's your emergency? It was him. I need you to understand, he said quickly, like he was running out of time. They've got it wrong. You're not where you think you are. Who is that? I asked, gripping the mic. Look to your left. I did. The cubicle wall. Gray fabric. A pen holding up a crumpled note from last month's potluck. Not there, he said, in the glass. I turned slowly toward the big pane again. My reflection wasn't sitting anymore. It was standing, pressed up against the inside of the glass like there was another room beyond it. Its hands were flat on the surface, fingers splayed. Its eyes locked on mine. And I swear, God help me, it mouthed my name. The caller said, You're in my seat. I'm in yours. I felt something then. A cold, prickling weight across my shoulders, like someone was leaning over me from behind. I twisted around, but no one was there. When I turned back, the reflection was gone. Just me again, pale and shaking. The caller's voice dropped to a whisper. It's going to come through. And then the line cut out. The rest of the night was wrong. I couldn't focus on anything else. Calls came and went. Domestics, a fender bender, a guy who thought someone was in his backyard. But I kept glancing at the glass, waiting for that tilt of the head, that too wide smile. At one point, I thought I saw movement in it, but it was just my supervisor coming back from the break room. Except, I could have sworn I saw her reflection pause behind me a second longer than she actually did. By the end of my shift, my voice was raw from answering calls. My head felt like it was full of static. And when I finally stood to leave, I made the mistake of looking one last time at the glass. For a split second, I thought I saw the other me, standing far back in the reflection, deep in the shadows of that mirrored world, watching me go. And I could have sworn he was still smiling. It's strange how silence can feel heavy. The kind that sits in the corners of the room and presses down on you until you start to hear things that aren't there. That's what the dispatch floor felt like the next night. I've been on for about an hour, sipping stale coffee and scanning the monitors. The other dispatchers were at their stations, their murmurs blending with the low hum of electronics. I was doing what I always did on quiet nights, scrolling through the previous shift's call logs, keeping half an eye on the live lines. It wasn't busy. That's usually a blessing. But after last night's call, the one with the voice that was mine, every empty second felt suspicious. I convinced myself it was a prank. A really, really good prank. Someone spoofing the line, maybe messing with my head. But the more I replayed it in my mind, the more I realized it wasn't just the voice, it was the rhythm, the pauses, even the way my throat clicked when I swallowed before speaking. You can't fake that. And yet, here I was trying to pretend everything was fine. At 11:37 p.m., my first real call of the night came through. Standard domestic disturbance. Neighbors complaining about shouting, glass breaking. I dispatched a unit, marked it down, went back to scanning the board. 2 minutes later, the phone rang again. The same line as last night. 911, what's your emergency? I said, already bracing for it. There was breathing on the other end. Low, steady, like someone who'd just been running and was trying to slow their heart down. Don't answer the next one, the voice said. My voice. I froze. I'm sorry, who is this? You know who I am. Something about the way they said it, quiet, calm, made my stomach twist. What do you mean, don't answer the next one? I asked, trying to sound firm, but my own voice coming back at me made it feel like I was arguing with a mirror. You're not supposed to be here tonight, they said. It's not your shift. That was a weird thing to say. I was scheduled. I've been covering extra hours because Tim from a night crew was out sick. I think you got the wrong. I started, but the line clicked dead. I sat there staring at the screen, the call Idaho glowing like a warning light. I could still hear my voice in my head. Not your shift. I told myself it was just another prank, a continuation of yesterday's mess. But then, less than 30 seconds later, the next call came in. Different number, different ID. 911, what's your emergency? A woman's voice, frantic, crying. There's a man outside my house. He's not moving, he's just standing there. Please, you have to send someone. I typed as I spoke, asking for her address, trying to keep her calm. The sound of her panic was real, too real to fake. But then something happened, something that made my skin crawl. I heard it, behind her voice, my own voice. It was faint, almost drowned out by her sobbing, but I could swear I heard myself talking, giving her the same reassurance I was giving now. Word for word. I swallowed hard. Ma'am, is someone else on the line with you? She didn't answer me. She just kept crying, saying he was getting closer. I dispatched a unit, told her to lock her doors, and stayed with her until I heard the officers arrive. When I hung up, I sat back and just stared at the wall. If the first call was a prank, what was this? An echo? A recording? How could my voice be inside another live call? It made no sense. But it wasn't over. For the next hour, I took 4 more calls. And in every single one, I heard myself. Sometimes in the background, sometimes faint like a memory, but always there, always just ahead of me, saying the exact words I was about to say. It was like the calls had already happened, like I was following a script someone else had already read. At 1:14 a.m., the voice came back directly. The same ID as before. "Why are you still here?" it asked, and I swear I could hear something else in my tone now. Something tired. Not angry, not mocking. Just worn down. "I don't know who you are," I said, my throat dry, "but you need to stop calling this line." "You've already told me that," it replied. And it didn't matter then either. I didn't know what to say. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, like if I typed fast enough, I could make this into something that made sense. Then it said, "The next call is going to be bad." The line went dead. I didn't have time to process it, because the board lit up instantly. I answered, 911, what's your emergency?" Silence. Then a faint, rhythmic thud. "Hello, this is 911. Do you have an emergency?" A man's voice. Shaky. "I can't move." I asked where he was, but he just kept saying it. "I can't move. I can't move." And underneath him, just barely audible, I heard me. Talking to him. Telling him it would be okay. The thing is, I didn't know what to say yet. I hadn't even thought it. But the words were already there, in his ear from me. He started crying, his breath hitching, and said, "You already told me the ambulance won't get here in time." I froze. "I haven't said that," I whispered. But he didn't answer. He just hung up. The silence after that felt wrong. Too thick. Like I was the only person left in the building. I took my headset off, looked around the floor. Everyone was still there, talking into their mics, typing into their terminals. But it all felt far away. I don't remember much of the last hour of my shift, just that the calls kept coming. And in each one, I heard myself. Sometimes seconds ahead, sometimes minutes. It was like someone was running my night before I did. Like I was just filling in for someone who'd already done the work. Someone who was me. When I finally clocked out, I didn't even say goodbye to anyone. I just drove home with the radio off, hands gripping the wheel. I couldn't stop hearing it. My voice, saying things I hadn't thought yet, telling me it wasn't my shift. And the worst part? I'm starting to believe it. I didn't plan on staying late that night. Most nights I don't. I clock in, do my hours, and clock out. But sometimes when the station is quiet and the calls slow down, you get this strange sort of weight in the air. Like the silence is trying to hold you there a little longer. That's what happened. I was about to log off, already halfway to shutting down my screen, when Carla, our night supervisor, poked her head in. "Hey," she said, "since you're here, can you help me pull something from archives? Just a quick thing." I almost told her no, but she had that look in her, like she'd been chasing something down for a while and didn't want to lose the thread. So I followed her to the back. The archive room is colder than the rest of the building. Not just from the AC, colder in a way that gets under your skin. The kind of cold where you start rubbing your arms without realizing it. We've been digitizing old call logs for years, but the originals are still back there, stacked in dusty cardboard boxes and file cabinets. The really old stuff, the kind from before I was even hired, still sits on cassette tapes. Carla handed me a small cardboard box with J&MAR 2006 written in fading Sharpie. "Check the third week of February," she said. "File says there's a dispatch record missing, but the tape should still have it. Play it, confirm, and let me know." I didn't think much of it. I carried the box to the listening station, which is basically just an old desk with a dusty tape deck hooked into our system. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It wasn't mold, not exactly. More like that old, closed-up attic smell, wood, paper, and something faintly metallic. I popped the cassette in, hit play, and waited for that familiar hiss of tape. At first, it was just static, then the sound of the line picking up. A voice came through. My voice. Not similar. Not close. My voice. "This is County Dispatch," the recording said. "What's the location of your emergency?" I froze. It wasn't possible. I wasn't working here in 2006. I was 16. But it wasn't just the tone or cadence. It was me, down to the smallest inflection. A caller's voice came on next. It was a man. His breathing was fast, ragged, like he'd been running. "There's someone in my house," he whispered. She's in the hallway now." I felt my stomach knot, because I knew those words. Every single one of them. I knew them because I'd taken that call earlier tonight. Same man, same voice, same panic, the exact same words. I leaned in closer to the speaker. "When did you last see her?" my recorded voice asked. She doesn't move right, the man said. Her head's all wrong. I think she's smiling. That's when I knew. It wasn't just similar. It was identical, word for word. Even the strange, jerky way he'd said smiling. I remember taking that call just a few hours ago. I'd looked at the timestamp. August 8th, 2025, 9:14 p.m. But this tape, the label clearly read February 21st, 2006. I hit pause and stared at the deck. My skin felt too tight. I rewound it and listened again, thinking maybe my brain was just making connections that weren't there. Maybe it just sounded familiar because the human mind is wired to find patterns. But no, it was exactly the same. I let it play further this time. On the tape, my voice told the man to lock himself in a room, told him to stay on the line. And then, the line went dead, exactly like it had tonight. I remembered sitting at my desk earlier, staring at the dead line, thinking maybe he'd dropped the phone. We dispatched a unit, but they'd radioed back later saying they couldn't find the address he'd given. It didn't exist. Carla came in just as I was rewinding again. Find it? She asked. I must have looked pale because she frowned and stepped closer. You okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, just listen to this. I played it for her. She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When it ended, she said, that is weird. That was all. Like we just heard some odd static, not my voice from nearly 20 years ago, repeating a call from tonight. You're not freaked out? I asked. She shrugged. Old tapes get messed up sometimes. Overwrite, bleed through, you'd be surprised. She took the box and left me there. But it didn't feel like bleed through. I know my own voice. And I know that call. I sat there a while longer, staring at the empty deck. The air in the archive room felt heavier now, like the cold had sunk deeper. Finally, I shut it off and went back to my desk. But when I got there, my call log was still open on my screen. And the entry for that man's call, the one from tonight, was gone. No record. No timestamp. It was like I'd never taken it at all. I checked the unit dispatch logs. Nothing. No mention of officers being sent to that address. But I remembered it. I could still hear the man's voice in my head, the way he'd whispered, smiling. I tried to work the rest of my shift, but every time the phone rang, my hand hovered just a second too long before picking up. And every time I did, I half expected to hear him again. By the end of the night, I convinced myself I just had a weird coincidence. That maybe it wasn't my voice on the tape, just someone who sounded like me. I almost believed it, until the next night. Because the next night, another old tape showed up on my desk. No box this time. No label. Just sitting there waiting. I put it in. Static. Then, this is County Dispatch. What's your emergency? My voice. And a woman crying. I recognized her, too. I'd taken her call 3 nights ago. Word for word. I didn't even realize how quiet the room had gotten until the hum of the monitors started to sound wrong. It wasn't that they'd changed. It was me. Everything around me had taken on this strange, distant quality, like I was sitting underwater. The light from the overheads was too white, too sterile, making the edges of the consoles blur a little when I looked at them for too long. And the headset on my ears, it felt heavier than it had any right to. I kept telling myself I'd been working too many nights, that the overtime, the back-to-back shifts, the weight of these strange calls lately, it had all finally piled up, and my brain was just fraying at the edges. But then the line clicked. No ring, no alert, no ID on the screen. Just a click. I pressed the talk key without even thinking. Dispatch, what's your emergency? Silence. Then, after a long pause, too long to be accidental, came my own voice. Not like a recording, not like an echo. It was my exact voice in real time, breathing like I was leaning forward over the mic. And it said, "Hey, it's me. I just wanted to say goodbye." I froze. My pulse hit the ceiling. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because there was something the way I said it, my voice, that told me it wasn't casual or friendly or even normal. It was final, a goodbye with the weight of a closing door. The line didn't cut immediately. I could hear faint static, like air shifting across an open mic, and under it a kind of low hum. A vibration I could feel in my jaw more than hear. Then dead silence. Not call-ended silence. Not someone hung up silence. Dead. The kind where even the faint background buzz of the network is gone. The kind of silence you don't get unless the connection isn't just broken, it's erased. I pulled the headset off and stared at it like it might explain itself. My hands were trembling. I reached for the call logs. Nothing. The last listed call was 22 minutes earlier, a noise complaint from the east side. No unknown, no unlisted, no nothing. Like it had never happened. I told myself it could have been a bleed-through. Crossed lines. Something in the system cycling back audio from earlier in the night. It's rare, but it happens. But there was one problem. I hadn't said goodbye to anyone tonight. Not like that. Not in those words. And the voice hadn't just been me. It had been now me. Same cold in my throat. Same roughness from too much coffee and not enough water. Not a years-old recording or some glitchy fragment from the archives. It was me from this exact moment in time, saying something I hadn't said yet. I tried to push the thought out of my head. Got up, made another round of coffee I didn't need, and sat back down with the headset in my lap instead of on my ears. The room felt smaller. I kept glancing at the clock. It was 3:07 a.m. when the call came in, and it was still 3:07 a.m. now. I didn't believe it at first. Thought maybe the wall clock had stopped. But when I checked the system time on the console, it was the same. 3:07 a.m. I stared at that number for so long my eyes burned. Seconds weren't ticking. Minutes weren't changing. And then, without warning, the headset chirped. No ring. No alert. Just open line. Against my better judgment, I lifted it to my ear. Static again. That faint hum. And then, "You there?" It was me, asking if I was there. My voice was lower this time. Tighter. Like I'd been running. "Who is this?" I asked before I could stop myself. "You know," the voice said. "You already know." And in that moment, I did. Not because it made sense, but because I felt it. Like remembering something I hadn't lived yet. "You're not supposed to pick up," the voice said. "Why?" I whispered. The answer came back soft, almost like a breath. "Because when you do, it ends." I wanted to ask what it was, but the line went silent again. Except this time I could still hear breathing. My breathing. Not matching mine in real time. Not synced. It was ahead of me. Like the voice was living seconds before I did. "Wait," I said. "If this is..." But the voice spoke over me. "Don't say it. Just hang up. Please." The desperation in it hit me harder than the words. It was the same tone I'd used years ago when my sister called from the highway after her car had spun out. That brittle, shaking edge when you're not sure the person on the other end will ever hear you again. "I don't understand," I said. "You will," the voice answered. "Soon." Then there was this faint click. Not the end of call click. Something else. The sound of a headset being set down. And I swear, in that split second, I felt mine leave my hands, even though I was still holding it. Then dead. Again. Only this time, every monitor in front of me flickered. Just for a second. But long enough for me to see something impossible. On the CAD screen, in the incoming call queue was my own name. Not my badge ID. Not my operator number. My full name. With the timestamp. 3:07 a.m. I leaned back in my chair, chest tight, trying to convince myself I was seeing things. But the moment I blinked, it was gone. The queue was empty. The headset was heavier now, almost pulling me forward toward the console. And deep down, I knew I couldn't put it back on. Not again. So I sat there, hands flat on the desk, staring at the dead screens, listening to the kind of silence that feels like it's leaning in close. That's when the phone line, our backup, the old hard line, rang. A sound I hadn't heard in years. One long, low ring. Then nothing. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Another ring. Closer somehow. By the third, I realized it wasn't coming from the desk phone. It was coming from the headset, the one I hadn't touched. And when it stopped, I heard my own voice, faint but clear, just above the hum of the servers. "Goodbye." The sound wasn't coming through the earpiece. It was behind me. I turned, but the dispatch floor was empty. Rows of chairs, silent screens, and the low glow of emergency exit signs. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was at the door, keying in my code with hands that wouldn't stay steady. The lock clicked open. I stepped into the hallway and froze. It was pitch black. No overheads, no emergency lights. Just black, stretching in both directions. And behind me, through the crack of the door, I just come through. I saw the console light up. Incoming call. No ID. No number. Just my name. And even from where I stood, I could see the timestamp. 3:07 a.m. The same as before. The same as it had been all night. I shut the door. The click of the latch echoed down the hall like a gunshot. And in the silence that followed, I realized something that made my stomach drop. The voice that had said goodbye, it hadn't been me now. It had been me later. And whatever was about to happen, I was running out of time to stop it. Or maybe I already had it. I don't even drink coffee anymore. That was one of the first things I learned when I started dispatch work. You drink it during a shift, and your nerves start jumping at every little sound. Your voice shakes. You hear yourself talking too fast. You forget the questions you're supposed to ask in the right order. So now it's just water. Maybe tea if it's bad enough. And that night, tea wouldn't have helped anyway. It was a Sunday. Not that the days of the week matter much when your world's just a fluorescent lit room and a headset pressing into your temple. The station was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting for something to happen. My supervisor, Mason, was on the far side of the room pretending to read reports. Everyone pretends to read during slow hours. It was 2:42 a.m. when the call came in. Not the time you expect a wrong number. Not the time you expect anything normal. I put on my professional tone, the one we all use that hides how tired we are. 911. What's your emergency? A man's voice, shaky fast, came through. My house, it's on fire. I'm in the kitchen. The whole back wall's burning. I straightened up in my chair. Okay, sir, I need your address. 38 Westfield. Hurry. Please, I think the ceiling's gonna... His voice cracked, then coughed. I glanced at the clock. 2 hours, 42 minutes, and 18 seconds. My fingers were already typing the address into the system, sending it to fire and medical. Sir, can you get out of the house? I'm trying. More coughing. I could hear wood splintering in the background. It's spreading fast. I can't. The line went dead. Mason looked over. Structure fire? I nodded, already relaying what I had. Within seconds, I could hear the fire trucks being dispatched, the click and static of their radios as they confirmed the address. That's the thing about this job. You don't always get closure. You don't always know if they made out. The calls end, and you're just left with whatever your brain wants to fill in. I told myself maybe he got out. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he dropped it. But exactly 15 minutes later, at 2:57 a.m., my headset beeped again. Same tone. Same soft click. 911. What's your emergency? A man's voice, shaky fast. My house, it's on fire. I'm in the kitchen. The whole back wall's burning. For a second, I didn't say anything. My brain kind of stalled. Sir, what's your address? I asked, even though I already knew. 38 Westfield. Hurry. Please, I think the ceiling's gonna... Voice cracked. Cough. I looked at the clock. 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 18 seconds. Same second. Same cough. Same everything. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the call was already in our system from before. I pressed mute and waved Mason over. Listen to this. I unmuted, but the man was still talking, still coughing. I could hear the same crash of wood in the background, almost like déjà vu you could hear. The line went dead at the exact same moment it had the first time. Mason frowned. Could be a prank. At 3 a.m.? He shrugged. You'd be surprised what people find funny. But here's the thing. I've heard prank calls. They don't line up perfectly like that. They don't feel identical. I try to push it aside. People make recordings. Maybe he played it back to freak me out. Maybe some idiot friend was in on it. But the hairs on my arms stayed up long after the dial tone faded. We checked the fire's progress on the other screen. Crews were still on scene. No updates yet. No confirmation if they'd found anyone inside. Another 15 minutes passed. 3:12 a.m. The beat came again. 911. What's your emergency? My voice sounded tight, even to me. My house, it's on fire. I'm in the kitchen. The whole back wall's burning. I gripped the mic so hard my hand cramped. 38 Westfield? I asked. There was the tiniest pause, like half a breath, before he said yes. Hurry. Please, I think the ceiling's gonna... Voice cracked. Cough. Wood splintering. Mason, I said, already pulling the headset slightly away from my ear. It's happening again. He was already walking over. We sat there, both listening to the call until it cut out. Same timestamp. Same everything. And that's when Mason stopped pretending it was a joke. He called Fire Command directly. I could only hear his side. Dispatch here. We just got another call from. No, exactly the same. No, not similar. The same words, same sound. You still have crews there. Pause. You're sure about that? No one inside. When he hung up, he looked pale. They already cleared the house. No one was in there. It's still burning, but there's no sign of a resident. They talked to neighbors, the owner's out of town. I just stared at him. Then who? He held up his hand like he didn't want me to finish. By the time it hit 3:27, my stomach was tight. I told myself I wouldn't answer if it came through again. Let someone else take it. But when the beep hit, my hand moved on its own. 911. What's your emergency? My house. It's on fire. I'm in the kitchen. The whole back wall's burning. I didn't even let him finish. What's your name? I asked. Silence. Then, 38 Westfield. Hurry. Please. I think the ceiling's gonna crack. Cough. Splinter. I talked over him. Who are you? Can you hear me? Nothing changed. His voice just kept going like I wasn't even there. When it cut out, I sat there breathing like I'd just run. My hand was shaking so bad, I had to put them in my lap. I kept replaying it in my head. It wasn't just the words, it was the way his voice moved. The way his panic swelled in the same rhythm, like a recording that didn't care what I said back. At 3:42, I stood up. I told Mason I needed a break, but I stayed by the console. I wanted to see if anyone else answered. Beep. The new dispatcher, Claire, picked up. 911. What's your emergency? From where I was standing, I could hear it through her headset. The exact same opening line. The same cough. Her eyes flicked to me wide. She mouthed, it's the same guy. We let it play out. It cut at the same second. By now, every dispatcher on shift knew. And it kept coming. Every 15 minutes. Perfectly. Like clockwork. The fire crew stayed on scene until dawn, but nothing changed. No victims found. No sign anyone had been inside when it started. But the calls didn't stop when the flames went out. They kept going. Same voice. Same plea. Same 15-minute gaps. And the thing I can't stop thinking about is, if it's not a recording, if it's really someone in that moment, then that means he's still there. Somewhere in that burning kitchen. Asking for help. Over and over. And we can't reach him. Not now. Not ever. I kept replaying that call in my head as the fire crew rolled out. The way the man's voice had sounded, hollow, like it had been dragged up from the bottom of a well. And how his breathing didn't match the panic in his words. It wasn't ragged or desperate. It was slow, measured. I watched the clock on the wall as they left. 3:12 a.m. 15 minutes after the first call. The second time his voice came through. Same words, same pauses. I had frozen with my headset still on. It wasn't just a déjà vu moment. It was a perfect copy. Engine 6 is arriving on scene. The radio crackled. I pressed my finger into the transmit button. Copy that, Engine 6. You should have a male caller, possible victims trapped. Caller reported flames in the kitchen, spreading toward the hallway. There was a pause. Too long. Static hissed in my ear. Finally, the captain's voice came through. Dispatch, I don't know who called this in, but this place isn't on fire. I frowned and checked the address again. Say again. Another pause. Then, more static. No flames. No smoke. Not anymore. I felt my stomach twist. Not anymore. You're going to want to hear this, the captain said. His tone was low, almost like he didn't want anyone else in the truck to hear. It's already burned. Completely. Looks like hours ago. My first thought was that they had the wrong house. But I confirmed the address twice, the caller's own words, then what came up in our system. I pulled it up again. Same location. Same name on the property record. Engine 6 to dispatch. Another voice cut in. Not the captain this time. One of the guys from the crew. He sounded uneasy. We've got bodies inside. The room around me seemed to shrink. How many? I asked. A click. Static. 3. 2 adults. 1 child. They've been gone for a while. There's no way anyone was calling from here 15 minutes ago. I glanced at the other dispatcher across from me. She was staring at her monitor, listening in. Her eyes met mine. And for the first time since I'd started this job, she looked genuinely frightened. The captain came back on. Dispatch. The weird thing is his voice trailed off, then he started again, slower this time. The bodies, they're still sitting at the table, like they were eating dinner when it happened. I felt my skin crawl. Are you saying? They're charred, yeah? But their positions, the plates, the glasses, they're all just sitting there like it's mid-meal. Fire didn't spread like a normal one. It's like it started right there at the table and swallowed them. I didn't say anything because I was thinking about the call, about how I'd heard the man's voice describe flames coming from the kitchen, moving toward the hallway, like it was still happening. The captain's voice cut in again, sharper this time. And one more thing. The guy, the male adult, his head's turned toward the front window, toward the street. His mouth's open, like he was calling for help. I asked. There was a pause. Then, no, like he was still talking. Something icy slid down my spine. One of the other dispatchers leaned toward me and mouthed, "What the hell is going on?" I didn't answer, because I was still hearing that second call in my head, the perfect repeat, down to every breath, every stutter. Engine 6 started relaying more details. The structure was unstable, heat damage everywhere, but strangely no lingering smell of smoke in the air outside. No glow in the ashes. It was like the fire had burned itself out a long time ago, and the world just forgot to tell us. Then the captain said something that made me grip the desk until my fingers hurt. We found a phone. Landline. It's melted on the outside, but the cord's still plugged in. And there's a voicemail blinking on the machine. I pressed my headset tighter against my ear. From who? That's the thing, he said. It's from tonight. Timestamp matches your first call to the minute. Same voice you heard, I'm guessing. Every hair on my arm stood up. How is that possible if the phone's destroyed? You tell me, he said. They played it for me over the radio. The static was heavy, but under it, the exact same voice I'd heard. Same words, same tone, even the pause before he said kitchen. And then the call ended with that same slow inhale. The one that felt like it was being drawn out just for me. I didn't realize my hand was shaking until I saw the cord of my headset tremble. The other dispatcher, Megan, leaned closer and whispered that call wasn't live. I knew what she meant. It didn't feel present. It felt like something pressed against the thin wall between now and whatever comes after. Engine 6 cleared the scene an hour later. They tagged the deaths as suspicious, pending investigation. I logged the call, both calls under the same incident number. But the system didn't like that. The timestamp for the second call flashed red, like an error. I tried to save it twice, and both times the entry disappeared. When I printed the log, it showed the first call. The second one wasn't there. I didn't sleep the next morning. I just sat at my kitchen table, drinking cold coffee, staring at my own phone like it might ring any second. Because the whole night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the man hadn't been calling for help at all. He'd been telling me what had already happened. And for some reason, he needed me to hear it again, though I didn't notice the clocks at first. When we pulled back into dispatch, my head was still spinning from what we'd just seen at the fire scene. The smell of charred wood and burnt plastic was still lodged in my nose, like it had seeped into me. I just wanted to sit down, breathe, and maybe try to make sense of it. But the moment I stepped through the doors, something felt wrong. It wasn't quiet. The phones were still ringing, but it felt quiet. Like the sound didn't reach me right away. Like it was coming from far away, down a tunnel. Janice was at her station, headset on, eyes fixed ahead, lips moving quick. Her coffee was steaming beside her. I passed behind her, and she didn't look up, just kept talking into the mic. I slid into my own seat, pulled my chair in, and reached for my keyboard. That's when I saw the wall clock above the far cubicle. 3:07 a.m. The red second hand was frozen mid-step, just past the 7. I frowned. We'd left for the fire around 2:45. It had taken 20 minutes to drive there, another 10 or so to confirm the scene was already over, more than half an hour, easy, which meant it couldn't be 3:07 anymore. I checked the clock on my monitor. 3:07. The little one on my desk? 3:07. I glanced across the room. The clock over Janice's head. The one in the break room. The digital readout on the microwave. All 3:07. I leaned back, looking around, my mouth suddenly dry. I told myself it was some kind of power glitch. Maybe a surge had hit while we were gone. But if that were the case, why were the phones still ringing? The ringing wasn't steady. It came in bursts, like it was breathing. 2 phones in unison, then a gap, then one on the far side of the room would chime in. And each time, the sound seemed to press harder on my ears. Janice hung up a call and immediately answered another. County Dispatch. What's your... She stopped mid-sentence, blinked, then just stared ahead. She didn't speak for a long moment, just breathed. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry, sir. Can you repeat that? Her voice had gone small, weak. Something about her posture made my skin prickle. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but the words carried anyway. Yes, we're sending someone. Sir, you said this just happened. Pause. No, I understand. But when? Exactly when? Another pause. And she just sat there, silent, her hand still on the mouse. She nodded once, then slowly set the headset down. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. She just got up and walked toward the bathroom. I swallowed and turned back to my own phone as it started to ring. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the accept button. Something inside me, something small and scared, whispered not to pick it up, but I did anyway. County Dispatch, what's your emergency? A man's voice, gasping for air. There's a fire. My stomach dropped. His words were frantic. Please, I need help. My wife, she's oh God. He gave an address. It was the same one from an hour ago. Sir, I stopped. I didn't know how to say it. That we'd been there. That the fire was cold. The walls caved in. The body's already gone stiff. That his voice shouldn't even exist right now. When did this happen? I asked instead. There was a pause, as if he didn't understand the question. Then, it's happening now. Please, the flames are everywhere. And then the call cut off. No static. No click. Just gone. I sat there, staring at the dead line, my ears ringing in the absence of sound. The phone beside me rang, and the one after that. Somewhere behind me, someone said, You're sure? Just now. Their voice cracked on the last word. The clock on my monitor still read 3:07. I picked up another call. This time, it was a woman whispering that someone was breaking into her house. She gave me an address, one I recognized from earlier tonight. A domestic dispute that had already ended. Police had cleared it. Reports filed. The woman from that call she was already dead when they'd found her. But here she was alive, breathing into my ear. There in the kitchen, she said, her voice trembling. Oh God, I can't hear. Her voice stopped midword. Not like she hung up, more like someone pressed pause on her existence. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The clock's frozen red second hand seemed to stare back at me from across the room. It wasn't just the time that was stuck. It was everything else that was trying to happen anyway. Phones ringing with voices from hours ago. Events that had already unfolded, forcing their way back into the present. I thought about walking out, just grabbing my bag and leaving. But something inside me knew there wasn't really an outside to walk into anymore. If I stepped out that door, it would still be 3:07 out there. Another phone rang. Janice came back from the bathroom. Her face was pale, her lips pressed tight. She sat down and stared at the blinking light on her console without answering it. You getting the same thing? I asked quietly. She didn't look at me. They're all from tonight, she whispered. Every single one. I realized she didn't mean tonight like right now. She meant tonight like the past few hours. The same few hours that kept happening over and over. The headset beeped on my desk. I reached for it, then pulled my hand back like it was hot. No one else in the room spoke. Just the endless rotation of phones, each one trying to pull us into some moment that had already burned itself into the dark. I checked my watch. 3:07. I opened my phone. 3:07. It wasn't a glitch. It was deliberate. Whatever was happening didn't want us to see another minute. The next call I took wasn't a fire or a break-in or a car crash. It was me. County Dispatch, what's your... My own voice cut me off on the other end. Don't pick up anymore, it said. The tone was flat, tired, like I'd been through this too many times already. My chest went tight. Who is this? You know who it is. The line hissed softly, like breathing through static. They're not calls. They're openings. Every time you answer, it gets in a little further. What gets in? Silence. Then, look at the clock. I glanced up. The second hand twitched. Not a full movement, just a tiny jerk forward. Then stillness again. The line clicked dead. I just sat there, holding the receiver in my ear, my pulse in my throat. Somewhere across the room, someone started crying quietly. The next phone rang, and the next, and the next, and the clock stayed frozen that I don't even remember standing up from my desk. One moment I was staring at the blinking line on the phone. The next, my hand was on the glass door, pushing it open. The air outside was still. Not calm, still. Like someone had pressed pause on the whole damn town. The night was the same as when I'd last checked, dark, with that thin mist hanging low over the parking lot. The same crooked street lamp hummed above, its light flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. But the real thing that stopped me was the sky. It hadn't changed. Same exact arrangement of clouds. Same exact position of the moon. The same thin wisp of cloud cutting across it, like a scar. I knew that pattern. I've been glancing at it for the past 3 hours through the window. But now it was burned into my brain because it hadn't moved. The clock in the dispatch room was frozen at 3:07 a.m. And outside, time wasn't moving either. I stepped down onto the pavement. My shoes sounded too loud on the wet asphalt. No wind, no distant highway hum, not even a dog barking in the neighborhoods past the lot. I thought maybe it was just a trick of my brain. A long shift, too much caffeine, that jittery fog that makes you start noticing patterns that aren't there. But then, I heard them, the voices. They came from somewhere beyond the lot, faint, carried like wind through tall grass. But there was no wind. The first one made me freeze. It was a woman's voice, high shaking. Please, I don't know where I am. I think someone's outside the window. I knew that voice. Not like, oh, she sounded familiar. No, I knew it, because I'd just taken that call. 20 minutes ago. Word for word. I turned toward the sound, scanning the empty street. Then another voice. A man's. Dispatch. Please, you have to send someone. They're in the house. My stomach twisted. That was the man from an hour ago. The one who went quiet halfway through his sentence. The voices weren't just random. They were mine. They were my calls. Every one of them, drifting through the night air, repeating exactly what I'd already heard in the exact same tone, same pauses. I stepped further out into the street. It felt like walking into a stage set after the audience left. Just enough light to see shapes, but no warmth, no life. Houses sat dark. Cars lined the curb, still wet from the earlier rain. But the air, it was heavy. Like if I took one wrong step, it would crack. The voices kept coming. Different ones. Overlapping. Sometimes 3 or 4 at a time. I spun in place, trying to track them, but they weren't coming from a direction I could follow. They were everywhere. Close and far. Inside my head and far off in the trees at the same time. Then I realized something worse. They were getting louder. I walked faster, down the block, past the old laundromat with the busted neon open sign that never lit all the way. Past the diner with the blinds drawn. No traffic lights ahead, just blinking yellow in the fog. When I looked up, the moon was exactly where it had been when I left the station. I mean exactly. No shift, no drift. Even the tiny bright star next to it was frozen in place. It wasn't just that time wasn't moving. It was looping. I could feel it deep in my chest, that sick déjà vu that makes you swear you've lived the moment before. Except this wasn't a feeling. It was true. The voices reached a kind of swell, like a crowd before a riot. Dozens of calls I'd taken a night, overlapping, twisting together until I couldn't tell who was saying what. Someone's at the door. They're in the hallway. Please, don't hang up. Dispatch? Dispatch. They weren't fading anymore. They were right behind me. I spun around. The street was empty. I walked faster. I don't know why. There was nowhere I was trying to get to. Maybe I thought I could outrun the sound, break through whatever this was. But the town didn't end. I must have walked 10 minutes down the same 2 blocks. The same gas station on the corner. The same paper cup crushed in the gutter. Even the same busted drain cover in the street that I nearly tripped on the first time. Every time I passed it, the voices started their loop over again, starting quiet, then swelling behind me. I tried to test it. I stood still, waited. Sure enough, after a while, they faded. Silence. Then, exactly as before. Please, I don't know where I am. And the whole thing began again. I didn't know what was worse, that I couldn't get away, or that I was starting to expect it. Something about that made my skin crawl, like I was getting trained. I decided to turn back. Maybe if I got to the station, this would stop. When I reached the parking lot, my heart sank. Because it wasn't the station. It looked like the same low building, the same double doors, the same flickering light above them. But through the glass wasn't the dispatch room. It was my desk, but not as I'd left it. The phone was off the hook. The papers scattered. The chair turned toward the wall. And sitting in it. No, not sitting. Facing. Facing the wall, back to me. I couldn't move for a second. My mouth went dry. The figure in the chair, same shirt as me. Same haircut. Shoulders slightly hunched, the way I always sat too long. It was me. I don't mean someone who looked like me. I mean me. My exact posture, my exact build. I backed away slowly. My shoe scraped the pavement. And the me in the chair turned its head. Not all the way. Just enough that I could see its profile. Its eyes weren't eyes. Not empty. Not black. Just wrong. Like someone had drawn them on skin, and the skin didn't want them there. Then, the voices came again. Louder. They weren't in the air anymore. They were coming from the building. From him. Every single call I'd taken tonight poured out of his mouth all at once. My own voice overlapping, choking, gasping, pleading. I stumbled back into the street. And the sky shivered. Not a cloud moving. Not the moon flickering. The whole thing. Like a reflection in water when someone drops a stone. When it settled, everything looked the same. Exactly the same. I stood there until my breathing slowed, listening. The voices were gone. The building was empty again. I turned around and realized I wasn't on the same street anymore. No diner. No gas station. Just a long stretch of road disappearing into darkness. No sound. I think I should have been scared, but there was this numbness crawling up my arms. Like my brain had given up trying to make sense of it. I started walking again. It could have been minutes. Could have been hours. But eventually, I saw lights ahead. I thought it was the station. It wasn't. It was me. Through another set of glass doors. Sitting at the desk. This time, staring directly at the clock on the wall. 3:07 a.m. The second hand twitched. Once. Twice. Then stopped again. And somewhere in the dark, my phone started to ring. It hasn't stopped since.